Chapter 338. In the blink of an eye, the two of them directly engaged in a close combat battle. The sound of metal clashing was heard. Sword chi and saber chi were everywhere. Compared to their previous duel, it was obviously much more intense and terrifying. Moreover, Wu Ruoqin's strength had soared. Under the control of absolute power, his saber chi was overbearing. Every saber chi contained an extremely terrifying power. But what was shocking was that although Qin Hao, who was clearly weaker in strength, was unable to suppress Wu Ruoqin like last time, Wu Ruoqin was similarly unable to suppress him. Every strike of Qin Hao's was incomparably sharp and crafty, and every strike was aimed at the vital points. The sky was filled with saber light and sword shadows, and in an instant, the entire arena was riddled with holes. The extent of the battle's excitement shocked everyone. This little guy's sword skill has reached the realm of being able to use it at will. It's incredible. On the rostrum, the female venerable immortal stared at Qin Hao in the arena. She could not help but praise him in her heart. After a long battle, Wu Ruoqin's face became extremely ugly. Originally, he thought that with his current strength, he would be able to completely suppress Qin Hao in close combat. He wanted everyone to understand that in the face of absolute power, no matter how strong the sword's skill was, it would not be able to withstand a single blow. However, he did not expect that Qin Hao would be so difficult to deal with. At this moment, his attack power was more than 2 or 3 times that of Qin Hao. However, he could not do anything to Qin Hao. Not only that, Qin Hao's sharp and tricky attacks made Wu Ruoqin feel more and more exhausted. It seemed that he was once again in the situation of the first duel. At this moment, it was obviously impossible for Wu Ruoqin to fight back. I'd like to see how you can break my unique skill today. Boom! Wu Ruoqin suddenly launched a violent attack to push Qin Hao back. At the same time, he retreated quickly just like when he faced Qin Hao last time. He said in a cold voice. Wu Ruoqin's actions undoubtedly made everyone understand that he had lost again in the contest of sword skill and saber skill. Although he did not say it out loud, he had to admit that Qin Hao's swordsmanship had reached an unimaginable level. What was different from last time was that Wu Ruoqin, whose power had soared, could still attack while condensing his ultimate move. The blood-red saber light slashed at Qin Hao from a distance. Moreover, each slash carried an overbearing saber momentum, as if it was going to cut the world in half. It was extremely terrifying. Even if Qin Hao wanted to get close, it would not be easy. As Wu Ruoqin's aura soared crazily, the entire martial arts practice field was enveloped by a terrifying saber momentum. Open your eyes wide and watch. To everyone's surprise and shock, Qin Hao, who was obviously weaker in terms of strength, actually stood still this time and spoke coldly. As he spoke, the fighting spirit around him soared crazily. The 5 elements sword in his hand emitted a violent buzzing sound under the surge of energy, releasing a resplendent 7-colored light. Voila! Fight head-on. Qin Hao wants to fight with Wu Ruoqin. Will this work? When the silent martial arts practice field saw that Qin Hao was going to fight Wu Ruoqin's ultimate move head-on, there was a sudden burst of exclamations. One had to know that a head-on fight with ultimate moves was a contest of absolute strength. This was Qin Hao's fatal flaw. Even if Qin Hao could not stop Wu Ruoqin's ultimate move, he should have chosen to avoid it. But now, it was obvious that he wanted to fight head-on with his opponent. How could everyone not be shocked? At this moment, even Leng Yihan, who was healing himself, slowly opened his eyes and stared at Qin Hao in the martial arts practice field. He just looked at Qin Hao quietly, without the slightest worry. He just watched calmly with slight anticipation. No one knew Qin Hao's true combat strength better than him. From the beginning to the end, Qin Hao had not used the platinum sky-splitting slash at full strength. He had also not exposed his ultimate moves consecutively. Moreover, Qin Hao had the immortal bloodline and the way of the sword attribute. Once Qin Hao exposed these, what kind of commotion would it cause? Whoosh! When Wu Ruoqin's aura reached its peak, his entire body was like a bright meteor streaking across the sky, charging at Qin Hao at a terrifying speed. At the same time, Chen Hao, who had also reached his peak state, also rushed forward violently. Saber cleaving heaven and earth. The moment he entered the attack range, Wu Ruochen slashed down at Chen Hao with his saber. The moment he slashed out, a violent burst of vital essence gushed out from the saber like a volcanic eruption. In an instant, it turned into a terrifying saber light that was hundreds of feet long. With a terrifying saber intent and pressure, it swept toward Chen Hao. The terror of this saber made everyone's expression change. Its momentum was extremely shocking, covering the sky and the sun. Even the space where the saber light passed by had strange distortions. At the same time, Chen Hao let out a cold shout. What made everyone's eyes widen was that at this moment, vigorous and majestic vital essence gushed out violently from Chen Hao's body. However, it did not overflow. It only spread to a range of 20 feet around Chen Hao and stopped. It made Chen Hao seem to have become a light ball condensed by vital essence. His figure could only be vaguely seen. And when Wu Ruochen released the 300-foot saber light, Chen Hao also stabbed out with his sword. Buzz! Whoosh! In an instant, the majestic vital essence contained in the light ball seemed to be compressed and violently poured into the 5-element sword, turning into a sword light. No one could describe the speed of this sword light. No one knew what kind of terrifying power this sword light contained because its aura was condensed to the extreme. It seemed that even releasing the aura pressure was a waste of energy. Boom! Whoosh! It was as if the sword light, which was so small that it could be ignored, had produced a terrifying explosion the moment it collided with the 100-meter-long saber light. The sword light seemed to have been swallowed up by the boundless and terrifying saber light in an instant, disappearing before everyone's eyes. Without giving too much time to think, the entire martial arts practice field erupted with countless cries of alarm. Each and every one of them widened their eyes in shock, as if they had seen an extremely terrifying scene. The powerful 300-foot saber light, from front to back, from inside to outside, rumbled and turned into raging energy, continuously and completely collapsing, when the sword light, which had been condensed to the extreme, pierced through the 300-foot saber light. Only a wisp of it could be seen. But it was this wisp that directly blasted into the horrified Wu Ruochen's forehead. Bang! Red and white brain matter and blood dyed a large area of the sky. Everyone opened their mouths wide and looked at this scene in shock. Even the female immortal on the rostrum had a strong sense of shock in her eyes. And the collapsing saber light, under the inertia, continued to bombard Chen Hao, who could not avoid it. Boom! 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 While Chen Hao's figure retreated, the 5-element sword continuously danced in front of him, resisting the remaining power of the saber light. Finally, when all the saber light dissipated, the robe on Chen Hao's body had turned into numerous wounds that were so deep that his bones could be seen, covering his entire body. But none of them hit his vital points. His whole body was still standing proudly, and his handsome face was shining with a chill and arrogance that made people tremble. Plop! The sect master of the Sky Sword sect, the dignified sect master of a 9th-grade sect, collapsed to the ground at this moment. His face was pale and full of disbelief as he looked at Wu Ruochen's headless corpse falling from the void. His mind was blank, and only one sentence floated in his heart, like the most ruthless mockery: a dead genius is no longer a genius. This was what he said to Wu Ruochen. But now, the dead genius was not Chen Hao, but Wu Ruochen, whom he had spent countless efforts to cultivate. Crash! After a full half-minute of silence, when the referee announced Chen Hao's victory with a trembling voice, the entire martial arts practice field erupted into a huge uproar. Even the sect masters on the rostrum were no exception. How is this possible? How is this possible? He's only at the peak of the mid-stage nascent soul stage. How can he have such powerful control of true origin? Even old man can't do this, the example of the weak defeating the strong. This is the terrifying power of true origin control. This kid's future achievements are limitless. Battle talent, temperament, wisdom, courage, and judgment. Any one of these aspects is not something that ordinary people can compare to. Otherwise, he wouldn't have dared to launch such an attack. It was a close shave. If his attack had been just a little bit weaker, life and death would have changed. This was indeed the case. The energy contained in Wu Ruoqin's blade light was definitely several times more terrifying than Qin Hao's. However, Qin Hao, who had chosen to meet Wu Ruoqin's attack head-on, had condensed his energy into a single line and concentrated it into a single point. It was impossible to achieve this without powerful control of true origin, but Qin Hao had done it. Using a single point to break the surface, he had penetrated Wu Ruoqin's blade light and destroyed it from the inside out. Of course, this kind of destruction was very limited because the true origin that had condensed the blade light was under the control of Wu Ruoqin's mind. If Wu Ruoqin had allowed it to penetrate, Qin Hao would only have been able to destroy a small area that the blade light had passed through. It would not have had any fundamental effect. There was no doubt that this was a way to fight with his life on the line. If Wu Ruoqin had ignored it and allowed it to pass through, his blade light would have definitely killed Qin Hao, but he would have been killed by Qin Hao's blade light. Obviously, this was not what Wu Ruoqin wanted. Therefore, the moment the blade light penetrated the blade light, Wu Ruoqin controlled the blade light's energy to destroy it. However, there was a slight error in his judgment. Even when the blade light penetrated the blade light, it did not completely kill it. The remaining blade light killed him before he could even react. It was only at this time that Wu Ruoqin's terrifying blade light was completely out of his control. This was the line between life and death. It was the same for Qin Hao and Wu Ruoqin. But in the end, the one who seized the opportunity was Qin Hao. Of course, this was what many masters thought. As for Qin Hao himself, he did not care because this was the line between life and death under his control. Looking at Qin Hao's figure slowly flying back, even though Leng Yihan had long believed that Qin Hao would not lose this match, at this moment, his eyes were still filled with deep shock. First update. Gu Xing, forget it. You are no match for either Qin Hao or Leng Yihan. You just need to perform well, sigh. Seeing that Wu Ruoqin was dead, the sect leader of the Piaomiao sect no longer harbored any hope and said to Gu Xing through telepathy. This round was over. Because Leng Yihan and Qin Hao were seriously injured, the day's competition had temporarily come to an end. The next day, Xia Yuyu against Leng Yihan, and Qin Hao against Gu Xing Chu Qing Tian, who was widely recognized as the strongest, had a bye because of Wu Ruoqin's death. The remaining 14 people's matches had nothing to do with the 5 of them. Qin Hao against Gu Xing was basically a no-brainer. Although Gu Xing's performance was not bad, there was still a big gap between him and Qin Hao. In the end, he lost. There was nothing outstanding about it. However, the battle between Xia Yuyu and Leng Yihan showed everyone Leng Yihan's strength and tenacity. In terms of absolute power, Leng Yihan was clearly a level lower than Xia Yuyu, but he forced Xia Yuyu to use her trump card, the heartless swordsmanship. Even so, Xia Yuyu was unable to defeat Leng Yihan in the end. Of course, Leng Yihan was also unable to defeat Xia Yuyu. This was the result set according to the rules of the competition. In the eyes of the audience, Xia Yuyu had the absolute advantage, but Leng Yihan refused to admit defeat. He gritted his teeth and held on. The two fought for a full half an hour. In the end, Xia Yuyu was forced to call for a draw, and Leng Yihan finally stopped. However, Xia Yuyu was very angry in her heart. There was no other reason. Because of Leng Yihan and Qin Hao's relationship, she could not kill Leng Yihan, nor could she risk her life with Leng Yihan. Otherwise, with her advantage in cultivation, it would not be difficult for her to win, but the result would be Leng Yihan's death. What made Xia Yuyu even angrier was that when the referee announced a draw, Leng Yihan stared at her and said coldly, "I know you held back, but even if you didn't, I would not lose to you. Now, because of the difference in cultivation, you have the upper hand. It won't be long before I surpass you." How could this person be like this? She had already given in to him, but he still said such words. He was simply too ungrateful and too ungentlemanly. No wonder he was a pervert. And that expression, that look, it did not seem like he was simply saying that he would not lose to her in the competition. After receiving confirmation from Xia Yuyu, Leng Yihan, and more than 10 people behind them that they had all recovered to their peak state, the next round began. At this time, the referee and everyone had a clearer understanding of the strength of the 5 people. Chu Qingtian was undoubtedly still recognized as the strongest, followed by Chen Hao, Xia Yuyu, and Leng Yihan. Among the 3, Chen Hao was the most anticipated. He had already faintly surpassed Xia Yuyu and Leng Yihan. The weakest was Gu Xing. Therefore, when arranging the order of appearance, there would naturally be a bias. In this round, the first match was between Chu Qingtian and Xia Yuyu. In everyone's expectations, Xia Yuyu still lost to Chu Qingtian even though she displayed an even more powerful and terrifying attack than when she fought with Leng Yihan. Furthermore, she was injured quite badly. However, she managed to force Chu Qingtian to use an even more powerful attack. The second match was between Leng Yihan and Chen Hao. Without a doubt, these 2 dark horses were one of the most anticipated showdowns for everyone. But unexpectedly, the 2 of them did not enter the arena, and Leng Yihan simply admitted defeat. Leng Yihan did not want to waste his energy. He had already shown what he could. Against Chen Hao, who was still hiding an even more powerful and abnormal trump card, he would undoubtedly be trampled by this guy if he went up. There was no need for that. In the next round, Leng Yihan was against Gu Xing. Gu Xing lost. Chen Hao was against Xia Yuyu. Xia Yuyu also chose to admit defeat. This was not unexpected. After all, although the relationship between Xia Yuyu and Chen Hao was not clear, many people had already seen some clues. In addition, Xia Yuyu could not defeat Leng Yihan. It was naturally more difficult for her to defeat Chen Hao. At this point, there was only one battle left between the 5 experts. It was also the battle that everyone was looking forward to the most. Chu Qingtian versus Chen Hao. The 2 of them would compete for first and second place. Xia Yuyu and Leng Yihan would be tied for third place. Gu Xing was last and had lost the qualification to be one of the 4 young masters. This year's intersect competition's final match. Yuan Gates Chu Qingtian vs Star-Picking Sect's Chen Hao. Please enter the arena. After the last 14 matches had finished, the judge's majestic voice finally called out the names of Chu Qingtian and Chen Hao. Peak match. Chu Qingtian, the leader of the younger generation of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. He was the top genius of the Yuan Gate, the first of the 10 immortal sects. Before Xia Yuyu's rise, even Wu Ruochen and Gu Xing were inferior to him. Even when Xia Yuyu's cultivation level surpassed his, she could not overshadow his brilliance. And now, Chu Qingtian had used the Yuan Gate's essence infusion technique to reach the peak of the late stage of the incarnation realm. Regardless of cultivation level or combat strength, he was recognized as the number 1. Until now, only Leng Yihan and Xia Yuyu had forced Chu Qingtian to use a little bit of his trump card. From his relaxed appearance, everyone knew that he was still hiding many trump cards. How strong was such a person? And Chen Hao was the biggest dark horse in this year's intersect competition. Before the competition started, he was only a cultivator at the peak of the early stage of the nascent soul realm. He was a disciple of a small 3rd-grade sect. Even though the city in the sky had given him an unparalleled reputation in the Eastern continent, it was still his potential and not his actual strength. At least, before the competition started, no one had expected Chen Hao to reach this stage. He had won consecutive matches and led the star-picking sect, which only had 10 people. He had created one miracle after another that everyone found unbelievable. At this moment, could he still create a miracle against Chu Qingtian? Chu Qingtian's strength made everyone think that Chen Hao would definitely lose. But in the depths of their hearts, no one dared to say that Chen Hao would definitely lose. This was because he had created too many miracles, and because he had turned what everyone thought was impossible into reality too many times. This was a true genius that couldn't be predicted using common sense. He had completely exceeded everyone's knowledge. When the referee called out their names, everyone in the martial arts arena focused their attention on Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian. Even the female immortal supremacy, who was sitting on the rostrum, had a strange look in her eyes at this moment. She was obviously filled with anticipation. Boom! Boom! Chu Qingtian and Chen Hao flew up from their seats at the same time. The aura around their bodies started to increase crazily at this moment. They slowly landed on the arena. The entire sparring arena quietened down. Everyone was even more nervous than Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian. They couldn't help but hold their breaths and widen their eyes. Leng Yihan took a deep breath. His jade-like hands, which were obviously smaller than a normal man's, clenched tightly. His eyes, which were as sharp as swords, flashed with extremely complicated colors. There was a little excitement, a little anticipation, and a little worry, yes, worry. Leng Yihan knew that Chen Hao was still hiding a lot. But Chu Qingtian's strength was undeniable. He wasn't someone that Wu Ruochen could compare to. Furthermore, how could Chu Qingtian not be hiding anything? Chapter 340. Even Leng Yihan could not predict whether Chen Hao would emerge victorious in the end. Furthermore, Chu Qingtian's enmity towards Chen Hao was not new. Back in Sky City, Leng Yihan, or rather, Xia Qingtian, was very clear about it. Now, with his powerful soul perception, he could clearly sense that Chu Qingtian's killing intent towards Chen Hao was even more intense. What did this mean? It meant that the battle between the two could very well turn into a battle of life and death like the one between Wu Ruochen and Chen Hao. This made Leng Yihan worried. Xia Yuyu naturally knew what a domineering and arrogant person like Chu Qingtian would think when faced with someone like Chen Hao, who was bound to surpass him. Her grandfather had already mentioned this in the Jade Scroll that he had given Chen Hao. Firstly, it was not just a title. It was a huge matter that concerned one's reputation, fate, and opportunity. How could Chu Qingtian miss this one and only opportunity? She was also worried. However, Leng Yihan and Xia Yuyu's worry was far less than Helian Wuzi, Tantai Lian, and everyone else from the Zhaixing sect. This was because both of them knew that Chen Hao had the undying bloodline. Unless the opponent had absolute power that exceeded several levels, it was very unlikely that they could really kill Chen Hao. In the arena, Chu Qingtian and Chen Hao stood 1,000 feet apart as they stared at each other from afar. One's eyes exuded a domineering aura that looked down on the world, while the other exuded a shocking coldness and sharpness. Although neither of them took the initiative to activate their inner yuan, the space between the two of them was stirred up by the collision of their auras. When Chu Qingtian looked at Chen Hao in disdain and provocation, and opened his mouth to say, "You," he was unexpectedly interrupted by Chen Hao. "You wanted to kill me when we were in Sky City. Am I right? Now, you want to kill me even more. Am I right? It's just that you're in a bit of a dilemma. You don't know how to prevent me from being frightened by your strength and have a fight to the death with you, right? You're worried that I won't agree if you imitate Wu Ruochen. You were also worried that I would admit defeat when I couldn't hold on any longer, because you didn't have the confidence to make it impossible for me to even admit defeat. Am I right?" Chen Hao had a cold expression on his face as he asked 3 rhetorical questions in a row. These 3 questions hit the nail on the head and hit the nail on the head. Just like his sword techniques, every move was aimed at Chu Qingtian's vital points. Chu Qingtian's face immediately turned gloomy, but he was tongue-tied and couldn't reply. "You don't have to worry about it. I will fulfill your wish." At this point, Chen Hao turned to look at the referee and said, "Referee, please don't interfere with the competition because of me." Then, he turned to look at Chu Qingtian and said coldly, "Do you dare?" Hiss, the entire arena was filled with gasps. No one expected Chen Hao, who usually didn't bother to talk nonsense, to turn the tables this time. His cold voice, sharp words, arrogant expression, and disdainful gaze made him seem even colder and more arrogant, even though he didn't have Chu Qingtian's domineering and overbearing aura. He was arrogant in his heart and proud in his bones. Good, good, good. I didn't expect you to be even more arrogant than me. That's exactly what I want. Ha ha ha, come, I want to see what other trump cards you're hiding. How can you be so arrogant? Boom. Following Chu Qingtian's words, a vast amount of vital energy erupted from his body like a volcano. A terrifying pressure instantly spread out, and even the cultivators at the edge of the training ground, who were close to 100 miles away, changed their expressions in shock. What a terrifying aura, impressive. This aura actually causes even me to feel a trace of danger. Exactly what level has his combat strength reached? In the spectating area, an elder of an 8th grade sect exclaimed in shock in his heart. He was a cultivator at the initial stage of the primordial soul realm. Advancing from the nascent soul realm to the avatar realm was a completely different concept from advancing from the avatar realm to the primordial soul realm. Primordial soul realm. Only those who had stepped into the primordial soul realm would have the ability to tear apart the void, connect the heavens and earth, and roam the universe. However, Chu Qingtian's aura made even a true expert at the initial stage of the primordial soul realm feel a tinge of danger. What kind of concept was that? Whoosh! Chu Qingtian's powerful aura caused the energy of the heavens and earth and the air to be suppressed. Under the impact of this imposing aura, Chen Hao's clothes and long hair fluttered with the wind, yet his piercingly cold expression didn't change in the slightest. His peerlessly handsome and angular face was extremely lofty and sharp. Boom! Surging sword essence, violent true origin, and the mysteries of the space element were released from Chen Hao's body without any warning. Ah! It was also at this moment that Chen Hao released his aura for the first time. Countless people exclaimed in shock. The peak of the advanced stage of the nascent soul realm? Chen Hao had actually concealed the aura of his cultivation level. How is this possible? Even Leng Yihan, Xia Yuyu, and those who were familiar with Chen Hao widened their eyes in shock. This was especially so for the disciples of the Zhai Xing sect. One had to know that they were very clear about when Chen Hao had passed the heavenly punishment. How long had it been this time? How could he have improved so quickly? Furthermore, everyone was very clear that Chen Hao's power was beyond his cultivation level. If he wanted to improve, it would definitely be many times more difficult than normal cultivators. This was because he needed to refine more spiritual energy from the heavens and earth. Furthermore, his energy center, meridians, body, and mind had to be strong enough to keep up. Everyone only saw Chen Hao's improvement, but no one knew how crazy Chen Hao's cultivation had been over the past few days, or what kind of shocking price he had paid. Even when he was watching the battle, he was multitasking, reciting the primary outline of the Great Tao, and refining his true origin, not to mention resting at night. This was all because of the pressure that Chu Qingtian had given him. Every night, large amounts of primal crystal stones would turn to dust. Even 100 pieces of extremely precious supreme-grade primal crystal stones had been wasted by Chen Hao. Everything he did was to increase his cultivation level. Only by doing so could his absolute power increase. This was his greatest flaw at the moment. And this kind of terrifying speed of improvement could be said to be very difficult for anyone other than Chen Hao to achieve. Without the primary outline of the Great Tao, Chen Hao would not be able to refine and absorb primal crystal stones dozens of times faster than normal people. Similarly, if Chen Hao did not have such shocking, external wealth, he would not have primal crystal stones to refine. Interesting, truly interesting. In just a few short days, this little fellow has actually shocked this immortal time and time again. Truly inconceivable. Concealing the aura of his cultivation base, he actually managed to deceive even me. The female immortal venerable stared at Chen Hao and thought in her heart. At this moment, Chu Qingtian's expression revealed a tinge of shock and fear that came from the depths of his heart. However, he quickly suppressed it. So what if he was at the peak of the late nascent soul stage? He was at the peak of the late stage of the embodiment realm. Furthermore, there was still a huge gap between his strength and his aura. What was there to be afraid of? Not to mention, at this moment, he already had no path of retreat. Either you die or I die, and he could only fight with all his might. Clang! Chen Hao, who already knew that this would cause everyone to be shocked, did not hesitate in the slightest. With a thought, the 5 elements sword emitted a clear and excited sword cry and appeared in his hand. Bang! With a stomp of his feet, Chen Hao charged towards Chu Qingtian, who was thousands of feet away, at lightning speed. Chu Qingtian roared furiously and also took a step forward. He charged towards Chen Hao violently. Under the shock brought about by Chen Hao, Chu Qingtian charged forward at high speed. His aura also increased continuously as if there was no end to it. Seeing that Chen Hao's figure was getting closer and closer, Chu Qingtian's hands, which were wearing high-grade spiritual artifact gloves, suddenly struck out continuously. Boom boom boom, streams of majestic and vigorous true origin gushed out and immediately condensed into huge golden fist auras. There were a total of 10 of them, and each of them carried a terrifying fist intent as they blasted toward Chen Hao. At this moment, Chen Hao also struck out with his sword. Qi. Accompanied by a terrifying sword aura, an extremely sharp sword radiance contained a terrifying whirlpool. It streaked across a huge light screen that seemed as if it was going to cut the heavens and the earth in half. With a loud boom, it collided with the 10 consecutive fist auras. Under the huge recoil, the two of them did not retreat, but advanced instead. Boom boom boom, the violent energy and the shocking speed of the attack caused everyone's hearts to tremble and their scalps to go numb. This was only the beginning, and it was already so intense. How terrifying would it be when the real ultimate move was revealed? Impressive. Fortunately, I have reached the peak of the advanced nascent soul stage. Otherwise, even if I revealed all my trump cards, I would not be able to do anything to him. Sensing Chu Qingtian's domineering fist aura, Chen Hao was slightly shocked. In particular, the aura contained within it caused Chen Hao's attacks to be greatly restricted. It was as if he was facing a ferocious wild beast. It was as if Chu Qingtian's every punch was a vicious move that could kill 1,000 enemies and hurt 800 of his own. Facing Chen Hao's sword techniques that could strike at his vital points as he wished, Chu Qingtian was also shocked. He finally understood why Wu Ruochen was being suppressed even though he had an absolute advantage in terms of strength. Fortunately, his fist technique itself was the biggest flaw. That flaw was clearly displayed in front of you, as long as you dared to take it. If not for this, Chu Qingtian would have been suppressed by Chen Hao. The close combat and dangerous battle lasted for more than 10 minutes before Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian finally realized that neither of them could do anything to the other. As if their hearts were connected, the two of them unleashed a powerful attack at the same time, and their bodies instantly retreated. The only difference was that Chu Qingtian retreated very quickly, and also very far away. However, Chen Hao only retreated a few hundred feet before he suddenly stopped. He did not even do anything. It was as if he was one with his sword, and he suddenly shot towards Chu Qingtian at a terrifying speed. You want to stop me? Dream on. Die. Boom. Qi. 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 As Chen Hao charged towards him, Chu Qingtian was not shocked at all. On the contrary, his eyes revealed a tinge of excitement. He shouted coldly and suddenly attacked. Third update. The fourth update might be a little late. I suggest that you don't wait and watch it tomorrow. Go and have a meal in Wushan. Let's try to finish it before 12. Chapter 341. Translator, Endless Fantasy Translation Editor, Endless Fantasy Translation bowing, spinning, twisting his waist, punching out. Chu Qingtian's punch was filled with power and rhythm. At this moment, everyone was captivated by Chu Qingtian's punch. It was as if Chu Qingtian's punch was the only thing left in the world. At this moment, Chu Qingtian's mind was completely clear. All of his focus, strength, and essence were focused on this fist. All of his muscles, tendons, blood, and even every cell in his body was focused on his fist as he moved rhythmically. Qi. Qi. His speed was very fast, but everyone felt that it was very slow. Before he even punched out, a destructive and arrogant aura filled the air. At the same time, Chu Qingtian's right hand, which was wearing a high-grade spiritual weapon glove, became brighter and brighter. It was like a star in the night sky, giving off a brilliant radiance. Void-shattering fist. Boom. A fist that was as condensed as a star shot out from Chu Qingtian's punch. The sky suddenly darkened. The fist was not very big, but it was extremely condensed. Its speed was extremely shocking. Wherever it passed, the space twisted strangely and collapsed. A pitch-black, deep crack appeared. Endless spatial storms crazily poured into the fist, causing it to become even more dazzling. Stars whizzed in front, and cracks in space appeared behind. No one could describe how terrifying Chu Qingtian's punch was. No one knew how Chu Qingtian, who was only at the peak of the late stage of the embodiment realm, was able to execute such a powerful technique. At this moment, Chen Hao, who had already used all of his strength to execute the platinum sky-splitting slash, narrowed his eyes. Danger, absolute danger, a danger that made Chen Hao's hair stand on end. No matter what, he didn't expect Chu Qingtian's punch to be so powerful and terrifying. Even though Chen Hao was mentally prepared, he was still shocked by Chu Qingtian's punch. At this moment, everyone's eyes widened in shock. They forgot to breathe, and even lost the ability to scream. Even the experts on the rostrum looked at Chu Qingtian's terrifying punch in disbelief. The female immortal supremacy took in a breath of cold air. She looked a little nervous. Under the envelopment of the punch, Chen Hao felt suffocated. It was impossible for him to avoid it. No one knew that Chen Hao's mind was spinning at lightning speed. His powerful soul perception was locked onto Chu Qingtian's punch. Sensing the terrifying power contained within it, his brain calculated quickly. The final result caused Chen Hao's handsome face to shine with an unprecedented craze. 10%. There was only 10%. What else could he do? Fight. He could only fight with all of his strength. Chu Qingtian. When two enemies meet on a narrow path, only the brave will emerge victorious. Either you die, or I perish. Roar. A furious roar that resounded throughout the heavens and earth was suddenly emitted from Chen Hao's mouth. Boom. Chen Hao, who had already unleashed the platinum sky-splitting slash with all his might, went completely crazy at this moment. The rainbow nascent soul in his energy center started to spin at a terrifying speed. He released his surging true origin energy. His powerful physical strength, the mysteries of the space attribute, the highest realm of sword intent, and the secular sword Dao attribute that Chen Hao had never tried or dared to try in a battle were all released at this moment. At this moment, everyone, who had been distracted by Chen Hao's terrifying punch, was attracted by Chen Hao's sudden increase in strength and terrifying aura. Under countless gazes, Chen Hao slashed out with his sword. Qi. Destruction. Destruction sword principle. Countless people exclaimed inwardly at the moment of sparks. Yes, it was the aura of the destruction sword Dao. It was a sword intent that could destroy the heavens and the earth. It was a sword intent that was even more terrifying than Leng Yihan's destruction attribute. Qi. Qi. Chen Hao's aura didn't weaken in the slightest after he swung his sword and executed his ultimate move. Moreover, in an instant, he swung his sword 6 times in succession. Every single sword strike was just like the first one, terrifying to the extreme and sharp to the extreme. Moreover, they contained boundless profundities within them. After unleashing 7 strikes, Chen Hao paused for a moment. Just when everyone thought that it was over, Chen Hao unleashed another strike. Ga. Roar. Roar. The green dragon, white tiger, vermilion bird, black tortoise, and Qilin all followed Chen Hao's move without any warning. The huge illusory figures of the 5 elements divine beasts let out earth-shattering howls. In an instant, they danced in the air and formed a fused divine beast seal. With the last sword radiance, they met Chu Qingtian's punch. Although it took a long time to describe, only a brief moment had passed since Chu Qingtian had unleashed his punch. However, the change in the situation was like a stormy sea. Boom. 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 When the sword radiance and the fist met, there was an extremely terrifying explosion. Although Chen Hao's first strike was terrifying to the extent that it shocked everyone, it was still instantly destroyed by the star-like fist that tore through space. However, the fist was still resplendent. Just the aftermath of the explosion caused everyone to be shocked to see that cracks had appeared on the incomparably powerful barrier of the arena. In the contestant seats closest to the arena, Xia Yuyu, Leng Yihan, and the others all activated their protective auras to resist the terrifying aftermath. They were extremely shocked, but their eyes were fixed on the arena. They were afraid that they would miss the most exciting and peak battle. The second sword radiance was destroyed again. The third sword radiance was destroyed again. Then, the fourth sword radiance, the fifth sword radiance. When the fifth sword radiance was destroyed, the resplendent fist finally started to dim and weaken. However, it was still unstoppable. Sixth sword radiance, seventh sword radiance, the fist became even dimmer, but the aura it emitted was still extremely terrifying. At this moment, no one knew what the final outcome would be. Chen Hao didn't know, and neither did Chu Qingtian. Even the experts on the rostrum, including the female immortal supremacy, didn't know. This was because Chen Hao's remaining strongest strike and the remaining aura of the fist contained an astonishing amount of power. Even with Chen Hao's extremely powerful soul perception, he couldn't tell who was stronger. Chen Hao didn't expect Chu Qingtian to be so powerful. Similarly, Chu Qingtian didn't expect Chen Hao to be so terrifying. Boom. The final collision finally erupted. The earth-shattering power and terrifying aura engulfed the entire arena. Even some of the weaker cultivators 100 miles away had to activate their protective upstanding qi in the face of this terrifying pressure. PFFF. PFFF. Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian had also exhausted their energy. Every explosion was a resplendent blow to them. Both of them were holding on with their willpower. At this moment, they finally spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. They fell from the sky onto the arena that was riddled with holes. They were evenly matched, and both of them were severely injured. Without a doubt, Chen Hao and Chu Qingtian had both challenged their limits and used attacks that exceeded their limits. They would either succeed or die trying. However, they didn't succeed, nor did they die trying. However, both of them could clearly feel that their energy center's energy had been depleted. Their meridians and organs were all damaged. The dust settled, and the destructive energy subsided. The two of them fell to the ground and appeared in front of everyone. The entire martial arts practice field was silent. No one can defeat me. I want you to die. Bam 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 bam. Suddenly, Chu Qingtian, who was lying on the ground, seemed to explode. He struggled to stand up and spat out a mouthful of blood as he shouted. As he spoke, he walked towards Chen Hao with heavy footsteps, relying on the last bit of his physical strength that he had left. His footsteps were like a death sentence. Every step he took made people feel suffocated. However, Chen Hao didn't move at all. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. When they saw this scene, the vast majority of people knew that Chen Hao was finished. This was destined to be a fight to the death. The outcome was life and death. However, below the arena, on the contestants' seats, Leng Yihan, who was originally filled with worry, relaxed instead of being nervous. He let out a long sigh, and the corners of his mouth curled into a gentle smile that even he himself didn't notice. If this smile was on her face, it would definitely be dazzling. However, when it was on his face, it made Xia Yuyu, who was also relieved, shiver. No one could stop it, and they couldn't. Even a female celestial supremacy couldn't interfere at this time. This was the arena, this was the competition. Under the cruel rules, there was no room for mercy. Everyone had to abide by the rules. This was necessary. The rise of a genius was to step on the corpses of countless geniuses. If this competition was stopped to protect the genius, then whether it was Chen Hao or Chu Qingtian, it would give birth to a heart demon that was difficult to resolve. The genius would stop there and become mediocre. He won't fall. Never. Helian Wuzi and Tantai Lian clasped their hands together tightly as they stared at Chen Hao, who was motionless on the ground. The star-picking sect's disciples, including Long Yakong, were extremely nervous and worried at this moment. The sound of their heartbeats and Chu Qingtian's hurried footsteps almost suffocated them. Ling Tian sect's Xia Lan Lan, Duan Yufei, Zhao Yuan Qing, and the other disciples who were familiar with Chen Hao, as well as those who were not, were also extremely nervous at this moment. On the main stage, the sect master of the Origin sect tried his best to control his emotions, but he still couldn't hide the joy on his face. He had to admit that Chu Qingtian's performance today had exceeded his expectations. Even he did not expect Chu Qingtian to be able to unleash such a powerful force. Now, Chu Qingtian's tenacious willpower and determination to win made him even happier. He firmly believed that Chu Qingtian would have a shocking breakthrough in every aspect after today. This was the pride of the Origin sect. It was also the glory that the most powerful sect in the Eastern continent deserved. Chu Qingtian had already walked up to Chen Hao and raised his hand that was laced with a trap before he threw a punch at Chen Hao's head. When Chen Hao still did not react, the sect master of the Origin sect knew that the outcome was already decided. In his intense joy, he turned his head to look at the sect master of the star-picking sect, Yuan Tairan. He really wanted to know how Yuan Tairan's expression would be when he saw such a genius disciple about to die. Ah! The moment he looked over, Yuan Tairan's face was indeed filled with despair and pain. His face was pale, and his body was trembling. It was also at this moment that a series of screams suddenly erupted from the training field. Even Yuan Tairan was no exception. This made the sect master of the Origin sect realize that Chu Qingtian's fist must have hit Chen Hao's head and caused it to explode like a watermelon. An interesting expression was about to appear. However, what puzzled the sect master of the Origin sect was that Yuan Tairan's expression was suddenly filled with intense joy after he screamed. Could it be that he had gone mad from anger? Fourth update. I've been writing since 3 in the morning until now. I'm finally going to finish writing the sex exchange competition. I'm asking for monthly votes, recommendation votes, and subscriptions. Thank you. Chapter 342. Ah! Bang! Good! Good! Ha ha ha! In an instant, Yuan Tairan's despondent, sorrowful, and gloomy face seemed to have been filled with adrenaline as he laughed out loud in excitement. Many sect masters around him looked at him enviously. No matter how stupid the Yuan Gate sect master was, he knew that something was wrong. It wasn't just because of Yuan Tairan's expression, it was also because of the terrified scream in the arena. Who else could it have been other than Chu Qingtian? The unconcealable pride on his face suddenly froze as he turned to look at the arena. Soon after, he fell to the ground with a plop, just like the Sky Sword sect master. In the arena. When Chu Qingtian dragged his heavy fist and punched towards Chen Hao's head, the motionless Chen Hao suddenly stretched out his hand and grabbed Chu Qingtian's ankle. He casually swung his leg to the side, causing Chu Qingtian's fist to lose its aim. At the same time, his huge body seemed to be weightless. As he screamed, Chen Hao used him like a whip and whipped him 360 degrees in the air before slamming him heavily onto the ground. Chu Qingtian's head made intimate contact with the hard arena floor under Chen Hao's violent physical strength. Soon after, a dull sound of impact, accompanied by the bloody and cruel sound of a watermelon exploding, caused the entire arena to scream in shock. On the other hand, Chen Hao, who'd finished doing all of this, didn't even spare them a glance. His peerlessly handsome and angular face was filled with a strand of breathtaking coldness and arrogance. Chen Hao wins. When the judge's majestic but slightly trembling voice sounded, the Zhaixing sect was the first to erupt in cheers. Soon after, a sparse response appeared in the arena and quickly spread out. After a while, the cheers resounded throughout the arena, turning into the cheers of countless spectators and cultivators. In particular, some young female disciples and lone cultivators were screaming and venting to their heart's content. No one cared about the Yuan Gate sect's prestige anymore. Only Chen Hao's name resounded throughout the arena. This was a form of worship and respect for the strong. It was a cheer for the number one person in the younger generation of the Eastern continent. He was the creator of miracles. He was a lowly youth who had entered the cultivation world from the 100 Empire ranking. However, in a short 3 years, he had risen to become the brightest star in the Eastern continent. He was only 18 years old, but he had created one miracle after another and broken record after record. He was a true genius, a genius that was hard to come by in the Eastern continent in 1,000 years. Killing Fan Fong made him stand out. Sky City, Sky made him famous in the cultivation world of the Eastern continent. And the intersect competition made him the #1 person in the younger generation. He was the #1 person who surpassed every year. No one could imagine what heights such a monstrous genius would eventually reach, what miracles he would create, and what records he would break. However, everyone present knew that they would be witnesses to a miracle. This year's intersect competition was destined to be the most exciting one in the past hundreds or thousands of years. When Qinhao returned to the contestants' seats amidst the thunderous cheers, the graceful female immortal slowly flew onto the arena under everyone's gazes. At the same time, a gentle aura, like the spring rain, quietly filled the entire martial arts practice field. At this moment, the noisy martial arts practice field instantly became so quiet that even the sound of a pin dropping could be heard. I was ordered by the Palace Lord to come to the Eastern continent to host this year's intersect competition. Before I came, I was very curious. The Eastern continent is the worst region in the boundless world. It lacks spirit energy and has few geniuses. Under normal circumstances, it would be sufficient to send an envoy. But this time, why did the Palace Lord send me? I don't understand. But now, I understand. I am very fortunate to be able to host this year's intersect competition. This is because I saw hope. I saw a few true geniuses who surprised me. This should be one of the reasons why the Palace Lord sent me. The female celestial supremacy said softly with a faint smile on her face. Her voice was very soft, but it carried a soul-stirring mystery. Every word seemed to ring in everyone's ears. It was clear and did not contain any energy. Her straightforward words made everyone in the martial arts practice field perk up their ears. Their hearts were filled with excitement because of the female immortal venerable's words. Although they knew that the so-called true geniuses had nothing to do with most of them, they were still excited. This was because they were members of the Eastern continent. However, the female celestial supremacy changed the topic. Her expression suddenly turned cold as she glanced at the main stage. Her voice was filled with dissatisfaction as she said, "Secondly, the Eastern continent has declined to the point where it can't decline any further." The 3 sect masters of the Yuan Gate, Sky Sword Sect, and Piao Miao Sect lowered their heads. They broke out in cold sweat and were extremely nervous. In the past few days, they had tried to get close to the female celestial supremacy, but she did not give them any chance. Perhaps things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. These geniuses who are unlikely to appear in the Eastern continent appeared here. This may be the hope for the rise of the Eastern continent's providence. Now, before announcing the results of this year's intersect competition, this celestial supremacy will first announce the adjustment of the 10 immortal Tao sects. Rumble, the female celestial supremacy's words caused an uproar in the entire arena. What did the adjustment of the 10 immortal Tao sects mean? At this moment, everyone finally understood that the female celestial supremacy's words a few days ago were not alarmist words. She was serious. However, the 10 immortal Tao sects were only qualified to be in the 9th rank sects. There were only 10 9th rank sects in the Eastern continent's cultivation world. There had not been any changes for hundreds of years. Their foundation and overall strength were not something that 1st rank to 8th rank sects could compare to. Could the female celestial supremacy be replaced by other sects? The Ling Tian sect will replace the Yuan Gate as the head of the 10 immortal Tao sects. The Yuan Gate, Sky Sword sect, and Piao Miao sect will be stripped of their right to speak in the 10 immortal Tao sects. Before the next intersect competition, if your performance satisfies this celestial, your right to speak will be restored. Of course, the premise is that you still have the strength to be ranked in the Eastern continent's top 10 sects. In these 10 years, the 10,000 Pill Pavilion, Spirit Void Sect, and Azure Valley will temporarily have the right to speak. Following the female immortal Venerable's straightforward words, the entire martial arts practice field uncontrollably fell into a buzzing discussion. So that's how it is. I've said that a 9th rank sect is not something that can be touched as one wishes. However, this punishment is severe enough. The Ling Tian sect is good. The Ling Tian sect's foundation is not inferior to the Sky Sword sect and Piao Miao sect. It's only second to the Yuan Gate. However, the Yuan Gate bullies others and is extremely domineering. Their disciples are all arrogant and domineering, causing people to be angry but not dare to speak out. However, the Ling Tian sect is quite righteous. It will definitely be much better to be led by them. Yes. Let's see how the Yuan Gate can be arrogant now. Although they are still one of the 10 immortal Dao sects, without the right to speak, they can't make any decisions in the cultivation world. The Spirit Void sect and Azure Valley are already top 8th rank sects, so they can obtain the right to speak. The 10,000 Pill Pavilion will have no problem becoming an 8th rank sect this time. In addition, the Celestial Supremacy thinks highly of them. With the Celestial Supremacy token in hand, I'm afraid they will have the right to become a 9th rank sect in a few years. That's for sure. Moreover, the 3 great sects have undoubtedly been robbed of their providence this time. The Celestial Supremacy just said that things will move in the opposite direction when they reach an extreme. The Yuan Gate, Heavenly Sword sect, and Floating Mist sect will probably begin to decline. It's fine if they can rise again in 10 years, but if they can't, then I'm afraid they will truly decline. Not bad, not bad. The old man has decided to join the 10,000 Pill Pavilion. I've had enough of being a wandering cultivator. Brother Mu, how about we go together? We can also be elders and contribute to the future of the Eastern continent. I want to go to the star-picking sect. Cough cough. Brother Mu, the star-picking sect is only a 3rd rank sect. Although they have a genius like Chen Hao, they can only be promoted to a 6th rank sect this time. After we enter, our treatment will definitely be much worse than the 10,000 Pill Pavilion. You can't say that. When a man achieves the Tao, even his chickens and dogs will ascend to heaven. It's enough that the star-picking sect has Chen Hao. However, they don't just have Chen Hao. Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian are also monstrous geniuses. They're at most in their early 20s. Moreover, the star-picking sect may not only be promoted to a 6th rank sect this time. If I'm not wrong, they'll definitely be promoted to 7th rank or even 8th rank. This also means that the star-picking sect will have to recruit a lot of people after this to increase their overall strength. And the most important thing. What? What's the relationship between Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian and Chen Hao? Is Leng Yihan on good terms with Chen Hao? What's the relationship between Xia Yuyu and Chen Hao? Although I can't be sure, these people have more or less been influenced by Chen Hao's luck. He's a monstrous genius with great luck and opportunity. Cough cough. I'm convinced. Brother Mu, you're so thoughtful. Shall we join the star-picking sect together? And we have to do it quickly. I believe that once the intersect competition is over, there will be countless wandering cultivators like us who want to join the star-picking sect and the 10,000 Pill Pavilion. In the martial arts arena, 2 old wandering cultivators were communicating with each other through voice transmission. The aura of these 2 old men had clearly reached half a step into the primordial soul realm. Moreover, they had basically reached their limits. There were many wandering cultivators like them in the martial arts arena. They had come to watch the intersect competition because they wanted to choose which sect they wanted to join. Xia Lingfeng, Clan Master Xia, now, you will announce the results of this year's intersect competition. After the female immortal finished speaking, she disappeared from the arena and returned to the main stage. Then, a red-faced Xia Lingfeng stepped onto the arena under the cheers and anticipation of the crowd. Grandpa is going up. Xia Yuyu said to Chen Hao excitedly and happily. As he healed himself, he looked at Chen Hao on the arena. He looked at the sage-like and high-spirited Xia Lingfeng and curled his lips slightly. He said something that made Xia Yuyu lose her ladylike demeanor and attack Chen Hao. It's just a general from a cripple. What's there to be excited about? Dark Mountain will be riding through the night. I don't know how much I can write. I'll do my best. Thank you for your support. Thank you, Brother Sword Tianya, for your generous gift and to all the friends who donated and voted. Thank you. Chapter 343. How could Chen Hao have the ability to resist? Chu Qingtian's fist was just like its name. It was enough to topple the heavens, at least to Chen Hao. A 10% chance of victory. Chen Hao had grasped that 10% chance of victory and obtained the final victory. However, in the end, he did not hold back and exceeded his limits. This caused him to exhaust all of his energy. More accurately speaking, he was even more exhausted than Chu Qingtian. Fortunately, the immortal bloodline, which couldn't be used in battle, and the strong body, soul, recovery ability, and wisdom, allowed him to win the final victory. Even when he was lying on the ground, he could still stand up and kill Chu Qingtian. However, he did not do so. Although the time was short, it was better to wait and gather energy than to drag his heavy body over. Fortunately, Xia Yuyu only pinched Chen Hao and was too embarrassed to continue. After all, Chen Hao was now the most dazzling star. Even when Xia Lingfeng was about to announce the final results of this year's intersect competition, many people had their eyes on him. Xia Yuyu and Leng Yihan, who were sitting together, also attracted many people's attention. Xia Lingfeng's majestic voice resounded throughout the entire martial arts practice field, suppressing the sounds of excitement and disappointment from hearing the results. The first to be announced was the ranking of this year's intersect competition, in order from lowest to highest. It was mainly based on the results and performance of the group matches. The results of the sects test and the number of people who had passed the test to qualify for the competition were also taken into account. However, the proportion of these was very small. As more and more sects were announced, the buzz of discussion grew louder and louder. Great Elder, what, will we be ranked? In the spectator stands where the star-picking sect disciples were seated, the star-picking sect's name still hadn't appeared when Xia Lingfeng announced that the top 30 were basically all rank 8 sections. At this time, the star-picking sect disciples, including the 3 great elders, were all very excited. Long Yukong couldn't help but ask the great elder. Old man isn't sure either, but we should be in the top 20, right? This result is not only based on the results of the group matches, but also the number of participants, test results, and so on. Otherwise, we would definitely be in the top 10. Hee. All of you are good. If nothing goes wrong, our star-picking sect will definitely become a 6th grade sect, or even higher. As they spoke, Xia Lingfeng had already reported the 25th name, but the star-picking sect's name still hadn't appeared. Number 20, the 7th grade sect, Myriad Pill Pavilion. Crash. But when the name of the Myriad Pill Pavilion appeared, the entire martial arts practice field buzzed with discussion. The disciples of the Myriad Pill Pavilion were all staring at him, seemingly unconvinced. The disciples of the star-picking sect were also staring at him in surprise. As far as they were concerned, even though the Myriad Pill Pavilion hadn't taken first place in their group, their results should have been better than the star-picking sects. After all, the more people who qualified for the official competition, the higher the test results would be. However, the names of the sects that were announced after that shocked everyone even more. 19th, 18th, 17th. Just as they were about to enter the top 10, the star-picking sect's name still didn't appear. 11th place. 3rd rank sect, Star-Seizing sect. Whoosh. 11, it's actually the 11th. Isn't that too high? Although they are the first in the group, they only have 10 people who are qualified for the competition. How can they be so high? Such discussions spread throughout the entire martial arts practice field. Even the star-picking sect did not expect this and felt a little embarrassed. They even thought to themselves, could it be that the Ling Tian sect, the new leader of the 10 celestial Tao sects, was deliberately biased because of the relationship between Chen Hao and Xia Yuyu? He he. At this moment, Xia Lingfeng paused for the first time. He looked at the audience in the martial arts practice field and said, everyone might have doubts about the star-picking sect's ranking. However, this is a bonus point given by a celestial venerable. Perhaps, in everyone's opinion, the disciples who are qualified to participate in this year's intersect competition are true geniuses. Even those who qualify for the test are considered geniuses. However, please look further and broaden your horizons. In the entire cultivation world, our eastern continent is the place with the worst karmic luck. Our so-called geniuses would be mediocre even in the western continent or the southern sea islands, let alone the middle continent. We lack true geniuses who can change the fate of the eastern continent, who can make a name for themselves in the boundless continent, who can bring fate, glory, and status to the eastern continent. The star-picking sect, on the other hand, was only a third-grade sect. But, they had it. And they had more than one. Chen Hao, as well as Helian Wuzi and Tan Tailian, who did not make it into the top 20, had it too. In terms of cultivation level, talent, and comprehension, how many of the so-called geniuses present could compare to them at their age? A single third-grade sect has 3 of them. They're stronger than any of the 10 immortal Tao sects. Does anyone have any objections? I can tell you now that the star-picking sect is not only ranked 11th, but will also become an 8th-grade sect. The sect will also be promoted to an 8th-rank sect. Like the Myriad Pill Pavilion, it will become a sect fully protected and nurtured by the 10 immortal sects. Even many half-step avatars were no match for her. Chen Hao ranked first, Xia Yuyu and Leng Yihan tied for second, and Gu Xing ranked fourth. They were the top 4 in the competition. The title of Four Young Masters, given by the Eastern Continent's cultivation world was eliminated because of Xia Yuyu. In fact, even without Xia Yuyu, Leng Yihan's real identity would have eliminated this title. Among the top 100 contestants, only the top 4 received a special token. This was a special token of the Wuji Immortal Palace called Guardian. Any disciple who received the Guardian token had the authority to travel in the Wuji Immortal Tao sects. For Chen Hao and the other 3, it meant that they could step out of the eastern continent. Moreover, in any immortal Tao sects, elites above the nascent soul realm could not kill them. Otherwise, no matter who it was, they would have to bear the wrath of the Wuji Immortal Palace. Yuan Tai ran. When the intersect competition finally came to an end, all the sect leaders and everyone in the martial arts arena respectfully sent off the Celestial Prime. Yuan Tairan, who was bowing with cupped fists, suddenly heard a faint voice that made Yuan Tairan's body stiffen and his brain almost crash. After midnight tonight, I will come to the star-picking sect's courtyard. I have something to discuss with you. Helian Wuzi and Tan Tailian need to be present. Yes. Yes. Yuan Tairan only reacted when the female celestial prime disappeared and responded. However, the target of the voice transmission had already disappeared. It turned into energy floating in the void. A moment later, his face, which was already in a state of excitement, became as red as a monkey's buttocks. Although he did not know what the female celestial prime's so-called discussion was, he knew that it was definitely a great thing. And it was definitely a great thing related to Helian Wuzi and Tan Tailian. The only thing that made him feel strange was that the female celestial prime did not mention Chen Hao. Xia Lingfeng also received the voice transmission. Naturally, it was because of Xia Yuyu. As for the Myriad Pill Pavilion Master, he did not receive the female celestial prime's message. The 3 of them did not make this trip in vain. Xia Yuyu is only 20 years old, and Helian Wuzi and Tan Tailian are only in their early 20s. If the 2 of them had Xia Yuyu's background, they would definitely not be worse than Xia Yuyu. When the female celestial prime appeared in the core palace specially prepared for her, there was a faint smile on her lips as she murmured. It would be even better if Chen Hao and Leng Yihan were not her people. What a pity. Chapter 344. That night. With the star-picking sect and the myriad pill pavilion as the representatives, some of the sects that had shown great potential in the intersect competition and had been promoted were being sought after by countless rogue cultivators. These rogue cultivators had basically reached their limits. If they were to rely on themselves, they would not be able to make much progress in their lifetime. Joining a sect and sharing the sect's fortune might be the best way to make further progress. Rogue cultivators with high cultivation and good reputations were naturally welcomed by any sect. Yuan Tairan and the three elders were pleasantly surprised that the threshold of the courtyard where the Zhaixing sect was located was almost bursting. The four of them were extremely busy and overwhelmed. Everything was like a super big pie falling from the sky. It came so fast and so suddenly that the four of them felt that it was unreal. It was not until it was close to 7 in the morning that Yuan Tairan and many cultivators agreed to discuss further with the Zhaixing sect 1 month later. They were waiting for the arrival of the female celestial master. Phew! In the cultivation room, Chen Hao let out a long breath and slowly opened his eyes. 2 rays of light flashed and disappeared. He was full of energy. In just 6 hours, Chen Hao, who had exhausted all his energy and was seriously injured, had recovered to his peak state. This primary instruction of the Great Tao is really amazing. I obviously did not comprehend it, but as long as I maintain the state of mind of reciting it, I can achieve twice the result with half the effort. My strength has increased a little again. It seems that this kind of life-or-death situation, where the battle exceeds one's own limits, is indeed the best way to improve quickly. I already have faint signs of breaking through to the half-step incarnation level. However, this time was really too dangerous and completely out of my control. If not for the unpredictable factor, the secular sword principal, who did not drop the ball at the critical moment, I'm afraid I would have been finished. Chen Hao thought to himself. During this period, Chen Hao had specially tried to activate the secular sword principle when he was cultivating and had spent a lot of effort. However, Chen Hao could not control the aura of the secular sword principle at all. Therefore, in a real battle, he naturally did not dare to use it. It was like a ticking time bomb. If he really treated it as his trump card, he might be the one to die from the explosion. However, Chen Hao could only take a risk in his final battle with Chu Qingtian. His chances of winning were too low. Even if there was an uncertainty, he could only use it as a bargaining chip. Fortunately, the secular sword principle displayed the most terrifying destruction attribute at that moment. A ray of light flashed, and the strange guardian order appeared in Chen Hao's hand. Staring at the mysterious runes on the guardian order, Chen Hao took a deep breath, as if he was thinking and making a choice. Finally, after a few minutes, he still seemed to have made a decision. He said to himself, "My path is to reach the peak. It couldn't be stopped. It couldn't be stopped. Otherwise, everything that's happening right now will be just a flash in the pan. If that's not me, what should I do?" Although Xiaowu and Xiaolian's strength isn't bad, they didn't make it into the top 4. Without this guardian token, they can't leave the eastern continent. If I leave by myself, the 2 of them will definitely resent me greatly. If I don't leave, it will definitely affect my cultivation. The path of cultivation was like rowing a boat against the current. If you don't advance, you'll fall behind. The so-called fall behind wasn't really falling behind. It was the advancement of others. Chen Hao was very clear that since he had reached this stage and become the number 1 person among the younger generation in the eastern mainland, he could only cultivate even more crazily. This was because he would be the target of all the younger disciples in the eastern mainland. If he became complacent and stagnant, he would quickly become mediocre and be stepped on by others. That was not what Chen Hao wanted. It was also not in Chen Hao's character. If he wanted to do something, he would do it to the best of his ability. The current him was just a temporary victory. In this world full of mysteries, and unknowns, the only thing he could see and touch was the eastern mainland. Moreover, even in the eastern mainland, his knowledge was limited to the younger generation. There were many things that could only be uncovered as his cultivation base increased. This was a vast and exciting world. Whether it was the Qin Hao of this life or the Qin Hao of his previous life, his bones were filled with arrogance and unwillingness to be mediocre. Since he had begun, he had to walk to the end without any distractions and set foot on the peak. This was what he looked forward to the most. In the eastern mainland, Qin Hao had already walked to the front of the younger generation. If he wanted to improve faster, he had to step into a wider space. Qin Hao. Just as Qin Hao was in a dilemma, Yuan Tairan's voice suddenly drifted over. His voice was very soft, obviously afraid of disturbing Qin Hao's cultivation. After all, Yuan Tairan did not think that Qin Hao could recover at this time. However, he had to interrupt his cultivation. Sect Master. What's the matter? The celestial supremacy is here. Yuan Tairan's voice trembled as he transmitted his voice. Ah. He's looking for me. Qin Hao was slightly surprised. He's not looking for you. He's looking for little Wu and little Yan, but he needs to discuss it with you. These two girls are too dead set on you. They don't even consider their own futures. They want you to make the decision. Ahem. I'll be right there. Yuan Tairan's words stunned Qin Hao and he immediately replied. However, he felt a little strange. Since the celestial supremacy was looking for Helian Wuzi and Tantile Yen, he must have thought highly of them. Could it be the celestial supremacy's will? It did not seem likely. According to Qin Hao's knowledge, the celestial supremacy's will was an extremely secretive matter that would not be known to a second person. Moreover, if it was the celestial supremacy's will, he should be looking for him, right? Qin Hao was confident that his talent was better than the two girls. Since it could not be the celestial supremacy's will, why would he look for them? Moreover, it was related to him. With a trace of surprise and confusion, Qin Hao quickly arrived at the main hall of the courtyard. The moment Qin Hao stepped into the main hall, he saw the graceful female celestial supremacy sitting on the main seat. Helian Wuzi, Tantile Yen, and Yuan Tairan were respectfully sitting below the female celestial supremacy. In addition to the four of them, Qin Hao was slightly surprised that Xia Yuyu was also sitting with the two girls. The five of them were looking at him. Disciple Qin Hao greets the celestial supremacy. Qin Hao hurriedly cupped his fists and bowed respectfully. His expression was as calm as water, neither servile nor overbearing. Just this appearance alone was enough to make the female celestial supremacy sigh in admiration. One had to know that not only Qin Hao, but even Yuan Tairan, Xia Lingfeng, and the other leading figures of the eastern continent's cultivation world would tremble a little when they saw the female celestial supremacy. They would be reserved and cautious as if they were treading on thin ice. However, Qin Hao, who was only an 18-year-old youth, could be so calm in front of her. She could not help but sigh in admiration. No need to be so courteous, sit down. The female celestial supremacy looked at Qin Hao with bright eyes and said lightly with a smile at the corner of her mouth. This expression, no matter how one looked at it, was very, very fond of Qin Hao. Thank you, celestial supremacy. Qin Hao responded and sat down in the seat below. You little guy are really good. If you weren't already her man, this celestial supremacy would be embarrassed to snatch you from her. What a pity, what a pity. The female celestial supremacy looked at Qin Hao and said regretfully. Ahem. Celestial supremacy, forgive this disciple for being presumptuous. Whose man am I? The female celestial supremacy's words had a hidden meaning, which made Qin Hao's heart skip a beat. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly looked at the female celestial supremacy and asked. Oh. Hearing Qin Hao's words, the female celestial supremacy was also slightly stunned and said, Don't you know who taught you the carving technique? Or Leng Yihan taught you? That's not it. Leng Yihan and I are from the same sect and have some relationship. It's just that we don't know. Then that's it. She probably didn't tell you. Then this celestial supremacy can't talk too much. I called you here because of this. This celestial supremacy values these three little girls. The three of them are the best in terms of age, realm, and potential. Even in the central continent, it's rare to see them. They are different from you. They are girls and their looks are extremely rare. If they are left alone to experience the world, no one can guarantee that they can grow up. So, this celestial supremacy wants to take them as disciples and take them away to focus on training. Take them to the Wuji Immortal Palace? That's right. The three little girls have to ask for your opinion. Little guy, your charm is really not ordinary. Do you have any opinion? No. The three of them can be appreciated by the celestial supremacy. That's a great opportunity. How can I have any opinion? That's great. Chenhao's mind was sharp and his reaction was extremely fast. This was originally something that he was having a headache about. The female celestial supremacy's decision was simply a timely rein. How could Chenhao object? When Yuan Tairan heard Chenhao's words, he naturally heaved a sigh of relief in his heart. He was very worried that Chenhao was as insensible as the two little girls. It would be too depressing if he gave up his future because of love. Fortunately, Chenhao was more straightforward than he thought. This was the demeanor of a real man. When Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian heard Chenhao's happy and excited words, they frowned at the same time and stared at Chenhao with a little surprise. They were very unhappy. Although the two of them had already guessed that with Chenhao's personality, who only had cultivation in his heart, he would definitely agree with the female celestial supremacy's decision. But couldn't he at least show some reluctance? But this guy looked like he couldn't wait to be pushed out immediately. Of course, Xia Yuyu was no exception. After 3 years of waiting, only at this intersect competition did she really meet Chenhao. They had only interacted for a few days and had to be separated again. How could she be willing? Moreover, she had obtained the guardian token and was prepared to roam the cultivation world with Chenhao. Cough cough. I was having a headache just now. Little Wu and Little Yen, you two didn't obtain the guardian token. If I leave the eastern continent with Yu and leave you two behind, I can't bear it. But we're still very young, aren't we? We should prioritize cultivation. Only by cultivating without distractions can we go further and higher. Don't you think so? When Chenhao saw the expressions of the three girls, he immediately realized that he had acted too agitated and hurriedly added. Chapter 345. The land of warmth and tenderness was the grave of heroes. This sentence was the absolute truth, a truth that everyone knew. But even if they knew, there was still 99%, infinitely close to 100% of people who couldn't withstand the test of the land of warmth and tenderness. They were addicted to it, unable to extricate themselves. Even if it was Chenhao, when faced with Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian, these kinds of peerless beauties, each with their own unique characteristics, he really wanted to immerse himself in the land of warmth and tenderness. How could he bear to push them away? But he had to be willing. Because no one cared more about feelings than him, and no one treasured and cherished these feelings more than him. Give up to get. Feelings needed to be settled, needed to be brewed. Only after experiencing time, space, and all kinds of tests could it be deeper, sweeter, and more fragrant. At the same time, he also understood that now wasn't the time to enjoy tenderness. If the young didn't work hard, the old would be sad. If at this moment he immersed himself in the land of warmth and tenderness, in this cruel world where martial arts were respected, where strength was everything, and where the fist was the absolute truth, he would inevitably be crushed very quickly. The female immortal left that night, taking Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian with her. Outside the space barrier, in the berserk chaotic space, a ball of light wrapped around 4 figures, flying at a speed of 10,000 miles in a flash. Even this immortal can't see through his future. This kind of person can't be restricted in any way. She's right. Immortal Master, who is she? Xia Yuyu asked. In the future, call me Master. She's Master's senior sister. In the future, she'll also be your martial uncle. You're still so young, but you've been bewitched by this little guy to the point that you've almost lost your Dao hearts. If you really stick with him, you'll inevitably be completely overshadowed by his radiance. There'll come a day when you won't be able to keep up with his footsteps. For you, this definitely isn't a good thing. Day and night are only the feelings of mediocre people. For cultivators, being able to mutually promote each other is the way of the king. Especially for a monstrous genius like him, it's even more so. Your current age is the golden age to wholeheartedly cultivate and improve. If you miss it, you'll never have it again. Although dual cultivation is beneficial, it's also under the premise that your strength is equal and your advantages complement each other. As for all of you, you don't have that right now. Being with him is both a restriction on him and a restriction on all of you. Do you understand what I mean? Understood, Master. That's good. In the courtyard, Chen Hao raised his head and stared at the endless night sky. At this moment, his pitch-black eyes finally flashed with a trace of desolation and reluctance. He stared at the torn space barrier for a long time without moving. Yuan Tairan wanted to say something, but in the end, he didn't say a word and quietly disappeared from Chen Hao's side. After an unknown period of time, Chen Hao's statue-like figure finally moved. Immediately, he disappeared from the courtyard like a breeze. When he reappeared, he was already back in his room. We gather once every 3 years. Even worse than the legendary cowherd and weaver girl. Was it that bad? Isn't that what I want? What a joke, I actually feel miserable now. Chen Hao talked to himself and answered his own questions. His words were a little messy, and his handsome face looked extremely strange. When the female immortal master left with the 3 girls, he didn't show this expression at all. It wasn't that he didn't want to, but that he couldn't. It was to prevent the 3 girls from being even more conflicted. He didn't have any experience with relationships, but he knew that when leaving, it was necessary to be cold and straightforward. Just like when he was with Helian Wuzi and Tan Tai Lian, there was basically no intimacy. Even if there was occasionally, it was built on the foundation of only cultivation in the heart. Chen Hao knew that in their hearts, perhaps they thought that he was the kind of person who was obsessed with cultivation and could achieve a state of being undistracted. In fact, he was also such a person, but he was far from being as cold as his appearance. Can you surpass me? Maybe. That's the Wuji Immortal Palace, the supreme existence in the entire boundless land that governs the immortal Tao. Father, mother, and the nameless old man should also be people of the Wuji Immortal Palace, right? From her tone, they should know each other, and they should be very familiar with each other. The carving technique should also be the ultimate technique of the Wuji Immortal Palace. Tearing the void is so easy, what kind of realm is that? The primordial soul realm can do it, but from the sect master's expression, it's definitely not that easy. I still have a long way to go. A day later, the Zhaixing sect received a huge reward second only to the top 10 ninth-ranked sects, including precious mineral resources, city jurisdiction, elixirs, primordial crystals, spirit weapons, and so on, and embarked on the journey back to the Zhaixing sect. The news of Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian being taken in as disciples by the female immortal master and brought back to the Wuji Immortal Palace for grooming spread like wildfire, becoming one of the highlights of this year's intersect competition. However, no one could understand why Chen Hao and Leng Yihan, 2 people who were definitely more terrifying than Xia Yuyu and the other 2, didn't receive this honor. Number 1 of the younger generation of the Eastern continent. Too powerful. We should be happy, right? Ha ha ha. In a desolate ancient city, a handsome young man laughed loudly as he looked at an ordinary-looking young man with a heavy aura. The one who spoke was Li Yifeng. The other 2 were naturally Ni Jianpain and Yang Fan. Ever since they saw Chen Hao and went out to train, the 3 of them hadn't returned to the Zhaixing sect. They were working hard and catching up. Before, there was Chen Hao, who didn't dare to be lazy in the slightest. After that, there was the freakish Gu Xing and Dongfang Jun, who made them even crazier. And now, the occasional team of cultivators they met allowed them to obtain information about the intersect competition. Naturally, they were pleasantly surprised for Qin Hao, Tantai Lian, Helian Wuzi, and also for the Zhai Xing sect. Although they didn't see the birth of this miracle with their own eyes, they could imagine the shock Qin Hao's proud figure brought to them. This was indeed something to be happy about. But for a moment, the three of them were silent and solemn. Li Feng, who had a casual personality, was the first to break the silence. But this time, his laughter didn't sound as gutsy as it had before. We should be happy. Let's go to the nearest city and have a good drink. We won't rest until we're drunk. Ni Jianping took a deep breath and said in a deep voice. Okay. We won't rest until we're drunk. Yang Fan said in a deep voice. The three of them looked at each other and found that the look in each other's eyes had become more determined and fanatical. None of them mentioned returning to the Zhai Xing sect. Although, they all wanted to go back and take a look. But they all held back. They were once proud geniuses and had fought side by side with Qin Hao. Although they didn't have much contact, Qin Hao had given them a lot. Material and cultivation. They knew that if they went back this time, Qin Hao would definitely take care of them, help them, and give them pointers again. But they chose not to go back. Because of their pride and self-esteem. They wanted to rely on their own strength to stand up and catch up. They didn't want to be a burden to Qin Hao. That was all. Sect Master, the Wantong trading firm refuses to accept any missions related to these two. What's the reason? Just because he's the champion? Because he's a once-in-a-thousand-years genius in the Eastern continent? This. I don't know. Then I'll let you do it personally. Remember, you only need the news. Don't reveal anything about your identity. Yes. The ghost-like figure bowed and replied. After that, it disappeared silently. No one can stop me from killing Qing Tian. Changing the destiny of the Eastern continent? It's impossible for such a person to be him. So what if he has a guardian order? As long as I don't go against my principles, even the limitless celestial palace can't punish me. I'm just spreading the news to the southern sea islands and the western continent. After the figure disappeared, the person sitting cross-legged in the palace said coldly with a gloomy gaze. This person was none other than the sect master of the Yuan school. Chu Qingtian's death, the Yuan school's right to speak, and their status as the #1 sect was something he couldn't accept. The Yuan school's foundation that had been built for hundreds of years could not be destroyed in his hands. And the person who had caused all this was Qin Hao, a disciple of a third-grade sect. He didn't dare to make a move, but it didn't mean that he couldn't kill with a borrowed knife. Qin Hao killing the top genius disciples of the southern sea islands and the western continent's 9th-grade sects was the best opportunity. He only needed to know when Qin Hao left the eastern continent and where he went. He believed that the western continent and the southern sea islands, which were more powerful than the eastern continent, wouldn't disappoint him. Even if they couldn't do it, he still had other ways. It was just that he would have to pay a huge price. Leng Yihan had already cost a lot. If Qin Hao did the same, it would definitely cost more than Leng Yihan. However, if it really came to that, he wouldn't hesitate. Qin Hao, what's your plan? Yuan Tairan and the three elders brought the disciples of the star-picking sect to Xinhua City. As they flew directly to the star-picking sect, Yuan Tairan looked at Qin Hao and asked. I'll cultivate in seclusion for a while and stabilize my realm. If I can break through to the incarnation realm, I'll leave after that. Sect Master, does our sect have any information about the boundless continent? Qin Hao asked. Huh? Didn't you refine the guardian token given to you by the celestial sovereign? No, then you'll know after you refine it. The guardian token contains information about the entire boundless continent. It's much more complete than what our sect has. Well. Sect Master, when we return, please give me a copy of the sect's information. There will always be some differences. It's good to know more, Chinhao said. Yuan Tairan frowned slightly. After pausing for a moment, he didn't say anything and nodded. Sect Master is back. Senior Brother Chinhao is back. Senior Brother Chinhao is back. Ah. Is that the number one person of the younger generation, Chinhao? So handsome. Third uncle, no matter what, you have to find a way to make me a disciple of the star-picking sect. As the group approached the star-picking sect's territory, they saw countless disciples loitering at the entrance of the star-picking sect's restriction. There were also countless youths densely packed together. All of them were dressed very luxuriously, but their auras were weak. They were obviously low-level martial artists. However, many of the youths were guarded by experts. The scale and number of people stunned Yuan Tairan, who had already expected this. Not today. Yesterday's game jam disrupted the update rhythm. Tomorrow's update will be between 7 and 9 p.m. I'll try to update as early as possible. If you like this work, you're welcome to vote for it at Chidian. Com. Chapter 346. Greetings, Sect Leader. Greetings, Sect Leader Yuan from the Li family of Qingyun City. Greetings, Sect Leader Yuan from the Zhang family of Anshu City. When Yuan Tairan, Chinhao and the others landed at the entrance, the crowd, who had been waiting for a long time, bowed respectfully. Greetings, everyone. Elder Wu, how can you let the guests wait outside? Yuan Tairan cupped his fists and returned the greeting. He then looked at Wu Zichuan, who was standing at the entrance. Cough cough. Sect leader, this. There are already many people in the sect. I really can't arrange it. Wu Zichuan looked embarrassed, but his face was flushed. It was obvious that he was still excited. This. Yuan Tairan was speechless. He then looked at the crowd and said, then I'll have to trouble you for the time being. It's fine, it's fine. Sect leader Yuan, you just have to tell us when you'll be recruiting disciples. We'll wait. Yes, yes, Sect leader Yuan, our third young master and fourth young mistress are both martial emperors. They are very fond of the star-picking sect, don't worry, I'll make an announcement within the next month. Everyone, please register with Elder Wu. I'll inform you as soon as possible. Okay, Senior Brother Chinhao, my name is Li Xiaoye. I'll definitely be your junior sister. Just as Yuan Tairan was about to enter the Star Season Gate, a 15 or 16-year-old girl boldly shouted at Chinhao, causing many people to raise their eyebrows. Chinhao was slightly stunned. He then turned to look at the girl and smiled, is that so? You should think about it carefully. Our star-picking sect is only a third-rank sect. Our disciples don't have many benefits. I'm afraid we'll be short of money for the expansion this time. You're quite talented. I advise you to go to another sect. You'll definitely be treated better. Don't worry, I don't want any benefits. Our family will definitely support the star-picking sect. I want to be your junior sister. The bold, passionate, open-minded and intelligent girl did not expect Chinhao to speak to her. After a short moment of surprise, she spoke loudly. Very good. Li Xiaoye. I think highly of you. Come on. It's good that the star-picking sect has such a sensible disciple like you. After Chinhao finished speaking, he turned around and left. He blended into the world and disappeared before everyone's eyes. On the other hand, Yuan Tairan and the other elders were stunned and dumbfounded as they watched Chinhao enter the room. Even Yuan Tairan didn't expect that Chinhao's seemingly casual joke would solve a problem that had been bothering him for a long time. Desperate times call for desperate measures, don't they? As the head of a sect, he could not say such things. Similarly, the star-seizing sect officials could not have such intentions. Otherwise, they would only be despised. But Chinhao's words had a completely different meaning. Amazing, the number one of the younger generation, really amazing. Can you feel it? He disappeared just like that, without any aura. How can we sense it? It's said that young Master Chen's concealment skills are so good that even the sect leaders of rank 9 sects can't sense it. I didn't expect him to be so approachable. This is the demeanor of the number 1 young master. The star-picking sect broke the rules to become an rank 8 sect. Their financial resources can't keep up. With so many people competing, it looks like we have to show enough sincerity. Chen Hao had never thought that his low-key method of extorting bamboo poles would actually become amiable and approachable under the halo of the number 1 person. Moreover, no one thought that Chen Hao had any ulterior motive for saying that. They all thought that he was being approachable. Geniuses were all proud. How proud would someone like him, who was said to be a 1 in 1,000 years genius in the Eastern continent, be? Not to mention talking to you, even looking at you would be disdainful. But Chen Hao didn't show any arrogance in front of everyone. It had to be said that this was the halo effect. A powerful person's fart could shake mountains and rivers in some people's eyes. It was incomparably powerful. Greetings, sect leader. Greetings, 3 elders. Greetings, senior brother Chen Hao. As Yuan Tairan and the others flew towards the star-plucking peak, countless disciples on the peak bowed to them from afar. Even Chen Hao bowed to them. Several inner sect elders also quickly came to greet them. Each of them was extremely surprised and reported the situation in the sect. Tens of thousands of people had been arranged in the huge palace of the welcoming peak. They were either famous itinerant cultivators or the princes and grandsons of some big families or super empires in the cultivation world. Obviously, their identities were much more honorable than those outside. Chen Hao calmly returned the greeting and followed Yuan Tairan to the star-picking peak to meet the 6 grand elders who had been waiting at the entrance. After chatting for a while, they returned to their own mountain. The mountain was very big, and the palace was majestic. However, it was cold and quiet. He thought that Yang Fan and the other 2 would be there, but he didn't expect to see anyone. Mo Yui and Dongfang Jun were still in the 7-star grotto heaven. The 2 of them hadn't come out yet. It was obvious that they had improved tremendously. When they came out again, they might be 2 Tantailians. Hiss. At this moment, a stream of light flew toward Chen Hao. Senior sister. Chen Hao's lips curled into a smile as he stared at the rapidly approaching figure. Dongfang Ting slowly landed in front of Chen Hao and said, Junior brother, congratulations. Nascent Soul Realm. Senior sister, you've also broken through, thank goodness you provided a large amount of primal crystal stones. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to break through. Junior brother, Yang Fan, and the other 2 sent a message and asked me to congratulate you. They won't be coming back to see you. Little Wu and Little Lian have left, and Little Mo and Little Jun are still in the 7-star grotto heaven. You don't even have anyone here. I'm afraid there will be many people coming to visit you during this period. Why don't I bring a few people to help you? Of course. It just so happens that I'm planning to go into seclusion for a while. I'll have to trouble you, senior sister. The star-picking sect had been boldly and vigorously expanding its territory. Not only had it expanded to a radius of over 1,000 miles, it had also recruited countless new disciples. Most of these new disciples had excellent aptitudes, and were from powerful clans. Of course, there were also many true geniuses. It was much better than the star-picking sect's original source of disciples. With more disciples, the number of outer court elders and inner court elders would naturally increase as well. Such a large-scale expansion would undoubtedly have many drawbacks, but they had no choice but to do so. Fortunately, the Ling Tian sect had sent many experts to help. The 6 great supreme elders of the star-picking sect had also personally participated. Everything was done in an orderly manner. Moreover, everyone could clearly feel that the heaven and earth spirit energy in the area where the star-picking sect was located had been constantly increasing. In just a few short months, there was an extremely shocking change. The auspicious light shrouded the area, and its aura was majestic. The heaven and earth spirit energy in a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles seemed to have condensed into the star-picking sect. The most mysterious and profound providence had begun to show its power and affect everyone in the star-picking sect. Even the disciples who were training outside gradually felt that their minds had become clearer and more agile than before. None of this had anything to do with Chen Hao. Apart from Dongfang Ting and the few people she brought with her, the mountain where Chen Hao was at was listed as a forbidden area by Yuan Tairan. Nobody was allowed to disturb Chen Hao's cultivation. During this period, Chen Hao would only come out to take a breather occasionally. Sometimes, he would go to the extraterrestrial waterfall that had become stronger and stay there for a few days. When he was around, all the disciples would consciously avoid him. Sometimes, he would go to the star-picking sect's secret information room that Yuan Tairan had specially authorized to look for any useful information. He cultivated, comprehended, and learned. Under this state, half a year passed in the blink of an eye. On this day, in the cultivation room, Chen Hao let out a long breath and opened his eyes. His entire aura was clearly much more condensed, stable, and powerful than half a year ago. Especially the essence, energy, and spirit that he naturally exuded was filled with majestic blood qi energy. Just by sensing this blood qi, one could tell that Chen Hao's current physical body had reached a terrifying level. Although his body did not seem strong, every movement of his contained a shocking sense of power. At this time, if an expert saw Chen Hao, he would definitely be extremely shocked. After half a year of consolidation, my realm has only reached the peak of the half-step to the incarnation realm. My sword realm is still at the peak of the 4th level of the heavenly realm, and my space realm is still at the early stage of the great success stage, which is the 4th level of the heavenly realm. Wind, light, darkness, and fire are all at the 3rd level of the heavenly realm. There is not much progress in them. Only my physical body, mental state, and carving skills have improved a lot, especially my physical body. But even so, my strength has increased by 2 times. If I were to fight Chu Qingtian again, it would be a piece of cake. It's about time. My realm has stabilized. Today, I will enter the incarnation realm. Hiss. Thinking of this, Chen Hao's figure flashed and disappeared from the cultivation room. The next day, the news that Chen Hao had attracted the heavenly punishment that was countless times more terrifying than the ordinary half-step to the incarnation realm and had successfully withstood it to enter the incarnation realm began to spread in the cultivation world. He has entered the incarnation realm. Then it's time for me to set off. In a majestic palace in the 1,000-pill pavilion, Leng Yihan sat cross-legged in the cultivation room. Mysterious ripples circled around his body. His aura was still at the peak of the early stage of the incarnation realm, but it was many times more powerful than during the intersect competition. After forcefully raising my realm, after half a year, I have completely consolidated it. Now, even if my real body's strength is not as strong as his, it is not too far off. It is naturally better to be able to train with him. Otherwise, my real body will encounter a lot of trouble. Leng Yihan muttered to himself, but before he could finish, his voice changed into hers. Mysterious and strange aura flashed around his body. In an instant, the original Leng Yihan no longer existed. Her blue dress fluttered, and her figure was graceful. Her aura had completely changed, and it was more than a level stronger than before. Even Chen Hao, who had entered the incarnation realm, was far from her aura. Then, her blue dress dissipated, and her entire person merged into the world. She turned into a gust of wind and disappeared from the palace. Chapter 347. After stepping into the early stage of the embodiment realm, Chen Hao did not set off immediately. Instead, he consolidated his realm and tempered his true essence to familiarize himself with the explosive increase in strength. The pain that Chen Hao endured during the second heavenly punishment was even more terrifying than the first. However, Chen Hao wished that he could trigger the heavenly punishment every day. One had to admit that the heavenly punishment's tempering of the body and mind was absolutely incomparable to any cultivation holy land. Chi chi chi, bang bang bang. Terrifying sword lights, palm shadows, fist shadows, and leg shadows floated in the cultivation room. Chen Hao's figure moved as fast as lightning as he familiarized himself with each of his powers. Buzz. At this moment, a faint buzzing sound came from the door of the cultivation room. Is there something important? Chen Hao, whose upper body was bare, suddenly stopped and thought in his heart. Then, he quickly put on his robe and walked out of the training room. Senior sister, what's the matter? Chen Hao opened the door of the palace and asked Dong Fangting with a puzzled expression. Someone is looking for you, who is it? Chen Hao was slightly taken aback. During this period of time, he had been in seclusion. In the beginning, there were many people who came to visit him. However, after they knew that Chen Hao was cultivating in seclusion, no one came to disturb him. Only when there were important matters would Yuan Tairan occasionally ask him to come out. She's called Qin Shui. She said that she had an appointment with you. Junior brother, is she the girl who was with you in the city in the sky? She's very beautiful and has a very powerful aura. She's even stronger than our grand elder. Cough cough, is she so powerful? Yes. She's at the guest peak. Do you want to see her? She's not an outsider. Let her come. Forget it, I'll go receive her. Hiss. After Chen Hao finished speaking, he disappeared in front of Dong Fangting. Dong Fangting was slightly taken aback. She looked in the direction that Chen Hao disappeared and thought to herself, not an outsider. Does junior brother mean that he and Qin Shui are also Dao companions? Perhaps. Only such an outstanding girl can catch junior brother's eye. There are already 4 of them, and each is stronger than the last. I really don't know how many he will have in the future, senior brother Chen Hao. Ah. Senior brother Chen Hao. When Chen Hao appeared on the welcoming peak, all the disciples who saw Chen Hao greeted Chen Hao with shock and admiration. Hiss. After sensing Chen Hao's aura, Qin Shui, who was sitting upright in a pavilion, suddenly disappeared and appeared in front of Chen Hao. She was still wearing a blue dress with a black veil covering her face. Her graceful and exquisite body was curvaceous. Even Chen Hao, who had not seen a beauty for a long time, felt his eyes light up. Peak of the late-stage embodiment realm. Aren't you a little too fast? Chen Hao stared at Qin Shui, who was also looking directly at him, and said with a little surprise. Is it fast? I think it's already very slow. The corners of Qin Shui's mouth curled up slightly, and she seemed to speak rather proudly. However, he felt a little proud in his heart. Of course, if it was the other her, it would definitely not have such an effect. Moreover, the other her realm did not have the slightest advantage in front of Chen Hao. This was the reason why she thought that she would not be worse than Chen Hao when she learned that Chen Hao had stepped into the embodiment realm a month ago. And now, it seemed that in terms of aura, she was several times stronger than Chen Hao. Of course, she was a little proud. Let's talk about it at my peak first. Let's go. Chen Hao looked at many disciples who were full of envy and admiration, smiled slightly, waved his hand and released a stream of energy. He gently dragged it and took the lead to turn into a wisp of breeze. Qin Shui immediately followed. Why are you looking for me? After directly entering the palace, Chen Hao stared at Qin Shui and asked aloud. Qin Shui glared at Chen Hao, but did not answer immediately. She walked to the main seat in the hall and leisurely sat on the wide chair. After lazily leaning on it, she said indifferently, Can't I come if there's nothing? Brother? Now that your cultivation is high, you have more confidence in speaking. But, you've indeed advanced quite quickly. Do you have any secret method? Your junior brother Leng Yihan is the same as you. Secret. This is the complete collection of heaven and earth spiritual items that you want. Have you cultivated the heaven-level superior grade lost art? It's time to impart it to me. Qin Shui said. Ahem. I've been busy consolidating my realm during this time and haven't had time to cultivate it. do you want to cultivate it first? Chen Hao took the jade slip from Qin Shui and said. When he obtained the heaven-level superior grade lost art, sky-shattering sword technique, in the miniature grotto heaven in Sky City, the two agreed that Chen Hao would cultivate it first and then impart it to Qin Shui. But Chen Hao hadn't even touched it after such a long time. He did not expect Qin Shui to still be concerned about it. That's not necessary. Okay, I'm leaving. Just for this, you came specially. Take it and cultivate it. In fact, it doesn't matter if I want it or not. The reason why I didn't cultivate it is because I'm not very interested. Chen Hao was a little speechless. He took out the jade slip of the sky-shattering sword technique and threw it to Qin Shui. I'll send you out. Okay then. Qin Shui took the jade slip. I'm just passing by. You don't have to send me out. I see that your realm is not stable yet, so I don't dare to delay your cultivation. Goodbye. Why is it so strange? After watching Qin Shui leave, Chen Hao frowned slightly and thought to himself. She came in a hurry and left in a hurry. It was only 10 minutes from start to finish. She gave him a jade slip and took away a jade slip. How trivial was this? Could it be that she just came to see him? Shaking his head, Chen Hao was too lazy to think about it. However, what Chen Hao did not know was that in the storage space in the depths of his mind, the aura of the mysterious existence and the treasure-hunting sword's spirit were quietly revolving around the so-called encyclopedia of heaven and earth spiritual objects that Chen Hao had brought. It was not studying the information of heaven and earth spiritual objects recorded in it, but a faint aura on the jade slip that even Chen Hao could not detect. Very quickly, the mysterious existence understood Qin Shui's intentions. However, it did not warn Chen Hao. In its opinion, this was a good thing. Half a month later, Chen Hao had completely consolidated his realm. Late at night. Hiss, a cool breeze drifted out of the Zhaixing sect. Apart from informing Dong Fangting and the sect master, Chen Hao did not inform anyone else. He quietly left the Zhaixing sect with a trace of anticipation and excitement. Phew. Is this Emerald Smoke City? Stepping out of the entrance of the incomparably huge teleportation station, Chen Hao sensed the vast and majestic aura of the city. Looking at the cultivators who were filled with various auras coming and going, his handsome face flashed with excitement as he thought to himself. In particular, the cultivators with different auras made Chen Hao sigh with amazement. Among them, there were not many cultivators, that is, the aura of the immortal Tao, among them. Instead, the aura of the fiendish demons occupied the majority. This was an absolutely impossible situation in the cultivation world of the Eastern continent. This was because no cultivator of the demon Tao or the demon Tao would dare to appear so brazenly in a city. But now, the Emerald Smoke City that Chen Hao spoke of was a city where immortals, demons, and demons coexisted. Little brother, is this your first time stepping out of the cultivation world? Just as Chen Hao was standing at the entrance and sighing, a cultivator who had just walked out of the teleportation station revealed a look of surprise after seeing Chen Hao. Immediately, he walked to Chen Hao's side, smiled, and cupped his fists. Yes. Chen Hao looked at the person who took the initiative to approach him, smiled, and cupped his fists. Little brother, you have such a cultivation at such a young age. I think you must be an outstanding figure among the disciples of the immortal Tao. It is said that a once-in-a-thousand-years genius has appeared in the cultivation world of the Eastern continent. Little brother, looking at your attire, could you be that Chen Hao, brother Chen? Hearing the middle-aged cultivator's words, Chen Hao frowned slightly. Ha, little brother, there is no need to worry. I am one of the managers of the Heavenly Armament Pavilion, Lei Long. I often travel between the various continents. That is why I have such a guess. I hope Brother Chen does not blame me. The middle-aged man smiled. Although Chen Hao did not answer, his words already confirmed that the youth in front of him was the famous Chen Hao in the cultivation world of the Eastern continent. It doesn't matter, Chen Hao said with a smile. He did not doubt this person's identity. From the information he had gathered, he already had some understanding of Emerald Smoke City. He was not worried that the person in front of him would harm him. He was just surprised that the other party had seen through his identity at a glance. When I first came to Emerald Smoke City, I was much more shocked than you. This city is jointly controlled by the Immortal Tao, the Yao Tao, and the Devil Tao. As long as the forces of the three realms are in the city, no one dares to have any conflicts. Brother Chen, you can rest assured. You have come at the right time. In 3 days, the largest chamber of commerce in Emerald Smoke City, the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce, will hold the largest annual auction. Brother Chen, since it is your first time coming out, you can go and take a look. I guarantee that you will not be disappointed. However, with Brother Chen's current strength, it is best that you do not leave the city. If you want to gain experience, you should go directly to the area controlled by the Immortal Tao. Many thanks for the reminder, Chen Hao said. Then I will take my leave. If you need help with anything, don't hesitate to find me at the Heavenly Armament Pavilion branch in Emerald Smoke City. Brother Chen, as long as you say your name, you will be unimpeded in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. The middle-aged man called Lei Long cupped his fists and quickly left. The corners of Chen Hao's mouth curled up slightly as he slowly walked into the city. He thought to himself, I didn't expect my reputation to be so great already. Is this a good thing or a bad thing? Most of the people in Emerald Smoke City are at the Incarnation Realm, and there are many at the Primordial Spirit Realm as well. However, I am afraid that there are not many at the Incarnation Realm who would dare to gain experience outside Emerald Smoke City. According to the information, the outside of Emerald Smoke City was a barren mountain range filled with countless terrifying demon beasts. Although it was a treasured place for Incarnation Realm experts to gain experience, there were not many at the Incarnation Realm who dared to go there to gain experience. This was an area that was governed by 3 rules, which could also be said to be ungoverned by 3 rules. The Immortal Tao, the Devil Tao, and the Yao Tao coexisted. Although this place wasn't as ruthless as it was in the other regions, it was certain that there would be hostility. This meant that it was not as simple as killing people and seizing treasures here. Even if there were no treasures, they would be killed because of their position. Hiss. Not long after Chen Hao walked into the bustling streets of the city, a blue dress stepped out of the teleportation array. Under the translucent black veil, the corners of her mouth curled up slightly with a touch of pride. Her beautiful eyes shone with a trace of anticipation and excitement. Just like when Chen Hao first came in, she looked at this city that could only be described as magical. Information was information. After seeing it for real, it would indeed surprise anyone. I can't take the initiative to find him. I have to let him find me. Chen Shui's powerful soul sensed the faint fluctuation and thought to herself. Second update. Third update may be very late. I suggest that you don't wait. Chapter 348. Chen Shui had just merged into the world and disappeared at the entrance of the teleportation hall when a figure wearing a black bamboo hat and concealing his aura appeared in the teleportation array. Leng Yihan didn't wait for him, but he did. I didn't expect that girl to follow him. That girl should be Chen Shui, who was with him in the Sky City, right? Hee. This is a good thing. If the news gets out, the effect will definitely be better. The person wearing the bamboo hat was an expert secretly sent by the Yuan Gate sect master. With his strength, he could naturally kill Chen Hao, but he could not and did not dare to. If the Wuji Immortal Palace really wanted to investigate something, there was nothing they could not find out. It was useless no matter how secretive his identity was. Therefore, the Yuan Gate sect master could only kill with a borrowed knife. In this way, even if the Wuji Immortal Palace knew that he had released the news, they would not be able to punish him. This was because the principle of the Wuji Immortal Palace's guardian order was only that experts above the primordial soul realm could not take action. There were no other restrictions. Otherwise, wouldn't this genius be a caged bird? Emerald Smoke City was the only exit out of the Eastern Continent's cultivation world. Unless it was a void-tearing expert in the creation realm, the first stop out of the eastern continent's cultivation world would definitely be Emerald Smoke City. It was also the only exit between the southern sea islands and the western continent's cultivation world. In fact, before Chen Hao obtained the high-level information of the sect, he only knew that the eastern continent was under the control of the immortal Dao. Nearly 4/5 of the area was under the control of the demon Dao and the devil Dao. Hiss! The black bamboo hat turned into a stream of light and went quickly to the southern sea islands and the western continent's guilds stationed in Emerald Smoke City. As long as the news spread to these two guilds, he believed that there would be people who would be very tempted. Moreover, he could sell it at a good price. He was sure of this. "Hello, sir. Is there anything I can help you with?" The black bamboo hat soon arrived at the mission reception hall of the Southern Sea Islands Immortal Dao Alliance. "I have information to sell," the black bamboo hat said in a low voice. "Okay, please follow me," the receptionist said respectfully. Then, she went to the information pavilion with the black bamboo hat. However, a moment later, the black bamboo hat was covered in dust, but there was a trace of excitement in his eyes as he quickly walked out of the hall. The reason was very simple. When he said that this news was related to the archipelago's Coiling Dragon Valley, Celestial Arcanum sect, and the other 5 major sects, they directly asked if it was the news of Chen Hao and Qin Shui from the eastern continent's cultivation world arriving in Chui Yen City. If so, you can leave now. Although he didn't make any money, he realized that Chen Hao and Qin Shui had killed the top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands. They were definitely top geniuses. Moreover, it had only been a short while, and they had already received the news. It was obvious that the people of the Southern Sea Islands had been paying attention to the movements of the eastern continent. He must have known about Chen Hao long ago. They had been waiting for a long time. As expected, he received the same treatment when he arrived at the Immortal Dao Alliance of the Western Continent. All the inns, all the restaurants, all the city gates, especially the locations of the 2 teleportation stations, keep an eye on them. Once the location is confirmed and the 2 of them meet up, we can carry out the plan. Yes. No matter how strong their concealment skills are, they won't be able to escape the detection of my God's eye. That chick has advanced to the peak of the late stage of the incarnation stage and caught up with my realm. I'll definitely benefit a lot from her. That kid is only at the early stage of the incarnation stage, he hasn't even reached the peak. However, I can't underestimate him. In a high-rise room of a towering palace, a figure stood in front of the window after giving an order. He looked down at the bustling Chui Yen city with a lustful expression as he muttered to himself. This person was Yi Shanshui, the commander of the Southern Sea Islands in the Sky City. Yu Qingfeng was killed by Chen Hao right under his nose, which was undoubtedly a great humiliation to him. Although the sect would not blame him for the death of a genius, it was still a stain on his record. Moreover, the most important thing was that he had never let go of the woman he fancied. In addition, the super geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands' 5 major 9th-grade sects had died in the hands of Chen Hao and Qin Shui, which undoubtedly infuriated the 5 major 9th-grade sections. How could they let such a person go? Therefore, they had been investigating the news of Chen Hao in the eastern mainland. In particular, when they found out that Chen Hao had won first place in the intersect competition and defeated Chu Qingtian, who was at the peak of the Avatar stage, while he was at the peak of the nascent Soul stage, they were even more determined to kill Chen Hao. The eastern mainland's immortal Dao was at the bottom, and it was adjacent to the Southern Sea Islands. If a genius like Chen Hao rose to power and reversed the destiny of the eastern mainland, wouldn't the Southern Sea Islands suffer? Originally, there had been no news of Chen Hao, but he did not expect that Qin Shui would appear with Chen Hao. Of course, this made Yi Shanshui even more excited. This time, Yi Shanshui was not the only one who came. There were more than 30 young geniuses at the peak of the late stage of the incarnation stage and half-step primordial soul stage from the 5 major 9th-grade sections. He was the overall person in charge. In order to kill Qinhao, the Coiling Dragon Valley's Valley Master had specially provided Yi Shanshui with the high-grade Earth-grade spirit treasure Heavenly Eye. As long as one was not a cultivator at the creation stage, no matter how good one's concealment skills were, they could not escape his senses. Qinhao walked leisurely on the streets. He was not in a hurry, and he did not think of immediately looking for a training destination. Tension and relaxation were the Tao of civil and martial arts. At this moment, he had gone through crazy closed-door cultivation and had stabilized his current realm. It was not a good thing to advance too quickly. There was no need to continue wasting the almost empty primordial crystal stones. In the storage space, if Yuan Tairan had not generously rewarded him with 100,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones before he left, he would have been so poor that he only had the spirit spring left. In the past, he felt that the spirit spring was a lot, but now he felt that it was too little. If he really used it at full power, it would be used up in a few months. This kind of thing could only be encountered and not sought. It was not worth it to completely temper it with primordial crystal stones. As for the spirit pills, spirit herbs, and other things he had obtained, including the empty spirit grass, he left them to Dongfang Ting and asked her to distribute them to Yang Fan and the other two, as well as Moue and Dongfang Jun, who were still in the Seven Stars Grotto Heaven. As long as it was something he could do, he would not be stingy with his own people. Moreover, those things were really useless to him. It could be said that he had emptied his inventory. Of course, Qinhao dared to give them all to Dongfang Ting before Yuan Tairan generously gave him 100,000 mid-grade primordial crystal stones. He had something to rely on, and that was the immortal fruit tree. The immortal fruit tree was nourished in the spirit spring. In addition to the special method of the mysterious existence, it had now borne an immortal fruit in the short span of a year. What was even more amazing was that not only did it not consume the spirit qi in the spirit spring, it could also constantly absorb the spirit qi of heaven and earth to nourish the spirit spring. This made the energy contained in the spirit spring thicker and purer. The immortal fruit can increase one's lifespan by 3 years, but it has no meaning to me. Since I managed to make it to this auction, I can just sell it. Who knows, I might be able to sell it for a good price, Qinhao thought to himself as he looked at the various shops and cultivators around him. He did not mind that he had attracted the attention of others. Moreover, he did not conceal his aura at all. There was no other way. He was poor, so he wanted to make some money. He could not do things like killing and robbing, but he liked it when people came to him. Of course, the premise was that he did not attract the attention of a poor female hooligan. Although he did not care much, Qinhao knew that he seemed to be getting more and more handsome and manly in this life. This was definitely not a halo effect, but purely in terms of temperament and appearance. In this unfamiliar Emerald Smoke City, not everyone could recognize him like Lei Long in the Heavenly Armament Pavilion. What kind of halo effect could there be? However, it was very obvious that he attracted attention, especially to women. The Immortal Tao, Demon Tao, and Demon Tao were no exception. Moreover, although Qinhao had a little advantage in terms of age and realm, it was not very obvious. It was not to the point that people would be surprised. The women of the Demon Tao and Demon Tao look much more coquettish and charming than the women of the Immortal Tao. This temperament is probably caused by the cultivation method, right? Itota, what do you think? In the end, Qinhao could not bear the loneliness of being alone. A wisp of his mind merged into his mind and took the initiative to speak. During this period of time, Qinhao had seriously warned that no one could startle him in his mind. Unless it was a critical time or when he did not take the initiative, no one could appear. He did not want to be influenced by anyone. Cough cough. Master, are you interested? No. Just asking. Oh, in fact, there is no difference between the Demon Tao, and Immortal Tao. It's just that the cultivation method you cultivate is indeed mostly evil. But the orthodox Demon Tao and Demon Tao are not. However, the orthodox Demon Tao's advancement speed is slow and not popular. These women look coquettish and charming, naturally the aura produced by the unorthodox cultivation method they cultivate. This place is really magical. Just as Chen Hao was strolling leisurely, a wisp of cool breeze quietly floated from the other side of the street to a few thousand meters in front of him. It went to a slightly hidden corner, and when it was sure that no one was paying attention, it revealed itself. However, the aura around her was still concealed by the heart mantra of merging with all things in the world, so that no one could see the depth of her aura. Of course, even if Chen Hao released his soul perception here at this moment, he would not be able to sense her aura. Soon after, his figure flashed and he arrived on the busy street. He walked at a speed that was even slower than Chen Hao. He should be able to discover me like this. Chen Shui's expression carried a trace of pride, and she thought to herself, I really don't know if he has no experience or if he is doing it on purpose. He actually did not hide his aura at all. Does he really think that the Guardian Order is omnipotent? Fortunately, I followed him. Otherwise, I really don't know how long he can live. Why is he walking so slowly? And he keeps staring at women. This can't be his true side, right? The third update is finally completed. No one is waiting, right? If there is, then it's too tragic. 2:00. Chapter 349. Chen Shui moved with light steps while sensing the aura behind her. Slow, so slow that Chen Shui had no choice but to move forward like a snail. Amidst the endless stream of people, she, who was dressed in a blue dress and had a graceful figure, was already an eye-catching sight. Her tortoise-like speed directly caused the entire crowd on the street to slow down along with her. What a beautiful woman, phew. Everyone says that immortal Dao women are pure and elegant. I didn't believe it at first. But now I have to believe it. Although this girl is wearing a veil, her beauty is enough to cause the downfall of a nation. Such a stunning beauty is truly rare. Someone in the crowd said. This aura is very young. She's probably only in her early 20s and has already reached the peak of the late stage of the incarnation realm. Looks like she must be an outstanding figure of the younger generation in the immortal Dao region who obtained the Guardian token. Why haven't I heard of her before? The only person who obtained the Guardian token in the Southern Sea Islands and the Western Continent was Jian Wufei of the Western Continent. Her realm is the same, but her appearance and temperament are too different from the rumors. The Eastern Continent only has Xia Yuyu, but she was accepted as a disciple of the limitless immortal palace. Could it be that this girl came from another region? Not likely. Our Emerald Smoke City is only the hub city of the Southern Sea Islands, the Western Continent, and the Eastern Continent. In the entire boundless continent, it is the worst region. How could immortal Dao disciples from other regions come here to train? There's no challenge at all. Quick, quick, although the crowd's discussion was very low, there was nothing taboo. How could Chen Shui not hear it? It had to be said that there was nothing wrong with being a woman. There was nothing wrong with being a beautiful woman. There was nothing wrong with being extremely talented and beautiful. But strolling at tortoise-like speed in a crowded street was too outrageous. Because of Chen Shui, the entire street had become congested beyond recognition. This made Chen Shui quite depressed. Especially when she sensed that Chen Hao's speed had become even slower than hers, she was even more depressed. Could it be that she had to stop herself? What's going on in front? Chen Hao looked at the dense crowd in front of him. It seemed to be seriously congested. He felt slightly strange. His mind, which hadn't been activated before, immediately extended over curiously. Chen Hao's powerful soul perception was like tentacles that quickly spread forward. Although his line of sight was completely blocked by the crowd, the buzzing sounds of discussion and the appearance of the cultivators could not be hidden from Chen Hao's soul perception. It was like a clear image that was more vivid than the naked eye. Beauty. What kind of beauty has the power to paralyze the entire street? As they approached, Chen Hao caught the crowd's discussion and thought in surprise. However, he suddenly stopped in his tracks. Ahem. Why is she here? Chen Hao. Chen Shui, who had been waiting impatiently for a long time, didn't dare to hesitate when she sensed the familiar aura sweeping past her body. He immediately locked onto Chen Hao and pretended to be surprised. Why are you here? Hiss. As she spoke, Chen Shui was like an ant on a hot pan, and she directly blended into everything in the world. A strand of faint and imperceptible breeze blew past, and she suddenly disappeared before everyone's eyes. Why am I here? Of course I'm here to gain experience. But you? Why are you here? Chen Hao was slightly speechless as he stared at Chen Shui, who'd appeared by his side, and then he directly grabbed her little hand and fused into everything in the world before speaking via voice transmission. At the same time, he swiftly left this place of trouble. Of course I'm here to gain experience. I didn't expect such a coincidence. You don't even have a guardian order. Why are you here? It's fine if you're here, but why are you dressed up like this? It's fine if you're dressed like this, but you're as slow as a snail. Aren't you trying to please the crowd? What does it have to do with me? I'm just curious. Who knew there would be so many boring people in this strange city? Besides, who said that I can't come out to gain experience without a guardian order? With my current strength, what's the point of staying in the Eastern continent? You're talking about me, but what about you? You walk as slow as a tortoise, and you don't restrain yourself at all. Chen Shui suddenly shut up halfway. Brother, this city is really magical. Look, there are so many demon cultivators and demon cultivators. Yeah, it's not just magical, it's even more strange. You clearly didn't detect my aura, so how were you able to lock onto my position? If I'm not wrong, it ought to be the jade slip that you came all the way over just to give me, right? Chen Hao held Chen Shui's little hand tightly as he turned around and stared at Chen Shui as he transmitted his voice. After he saw Chen Shui's astonished and frowning expression, he continued. Is there any need to make it so tiring? What's our relationship? Brother and sister? Just say it. Since you've said it, how could I not agree? It's not a big deal. Chen Shui utterly never imagined that after she revealed a little in her complacency, not only did Chen Hao know that she'd followed him here in such an instant, he'd even found the source of it. This caused her to be extremely embarrassed, and she more or less turned her face to the side with slight embarrassment to avoid Chen Hao's direct gaze. But what Chen Hao said after caused Chen Shui to turn around and glare at Chen Hao instead, and she said, "We're brother and sister." You don't look like an older sister. Where? The two of them were in the same state where they'd merged with everything in the world, and they didn't give in to each other as they argued for an entire 10 minutes without a conclusion. In the end, it was Chen Hao's manly demeanor that chose to avoid Chen Shui's rudeness before returning to normal. Needless to say, because of the special brother and sister relationship, the two of them didn't have any psychological barriers when they were together. And Chen Hao didn't blame Chen Shui for following him without permission in the slightest. In fact, it was just as Chen Hao had said, if Chen Shui spoke to him directly, he would absolutely not refuse. Firstly, Chen Shui's cultivation realm and combat strength weren't inferior to his. When the two of them trained together, neither of them would hold the other back. Secondly, after experiencing the training in the ancient Black Wind Cave and the city in the sky, Chen Hao liked the feeling of training together with Chen Shui very much. It was a feeling of being unrestrained. Moreover, he wasn't tempted by the feelings between men and women. This wasn't something that Xia Yuyu, Helian Wuzi, and Tan Tai Lian could compare to. It couldn't be helped. If Chen Shui was replaced by any of the three women, Chen Hao was afraid that he wouldn't be able to control himself when a man and woman trained together alone. Not to mention, if the other party took the initiative, Chen Hao would fall even more, but Chen Shui wouldn't. Welcome to the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce. Two eye-catching figures appeared at the entrance of the reception hall of the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce. Beautiful female attendants stood in 2 rows on either side of the entrance. After bowing at the same time, one of the female attendants approached Chen Hao and Chen Shui and said warmly and politely, "Sir, miss, do you need help?" "I have something to auction," Chen Hao said. "All right, this way please." The Yao Dao, the Devil Dao, and the Immortal Dao. Could this Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce be an alliance of the three forces? Chen Shui transmitted her voice as the two followed the female attendant into the hall. It should be. Since Emerald Smoke City is jointly governed by the three forces, then this is the largest chamber of commerce. Naturally, everyone wants a share of the profits. This Emerald Smoke City is only a small city in the region where the forces of the boundless world are mixed. However, even the attendants of this Chamber of Commerce are Golden Core Realm and Nascent Soul Realm experts. Truly amazing. May I know what the two of you want to auction? As they spoke, the two were brought to a reception window. The old man sitting in the cabinet glanced at Chen Hao and Chen Shui with bright eyes and spoke with a trace of a smile. Although he wasn't cold, he obviously wasn't very enthusiastic either. Just based on the two's age and cultivation, it was impossible for them to have anything good. Therefore, without waiting for Chen Hao to reply, he continued, "I think the two of you should know that our Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce's largest annual auction will be held in 3 days. If it isn't a rare and precious item, we can only postpone it to the normal auction in 10 days. I'll explain it to the two of you first. Is something that can increase one's lifespan considered rare and precious?" Chen Hao smiled and stared at the old man. "I don't want to wait for 10 days. It also depends on what it is. For example, the more common soul-strengthening grass and soul-replenishing lotus. Although they are expensive, if they are auctioned, they won't increase the income by much. What we care about this auction is its rarity and preciousness. Only such items can bring out the value of the auction." "Ha! Little brother, tell us what it is," the old man said with a smile. The soul-strengthening grass and soul-replenishing lotus could both increase one's lifespan by 1 year. However, in the cultivation world, compared to other items that could increase one's lifespan, they were more common and were more plentiful. There wasn't a shortage of them. The reason was that once a spirit medicine that could increase one's lifespan was consumed once, it would no longer have any effect. However, even so, the price was still quite high. If it was auctioned, it wouldn't increase the price by much. Basically, it was to the point where the price was clearly marked and didn't have much auction value. Pan fruit. Pan fruit? When the old man heard Chen Hao's words, he was stunned. "Little brother, are you sure? Although the pan fruit can only increase one's lifespan by 3 years, it is very rare." Chen Hao ignored the old man's surprise and took out the jade box that he had prepared earlier. The old man couldn't wait to open the jade box gently. Suddenly, a faint, refreshing fruit fragrance drifted out. After the old man took a deep breath, he hurriedly closed the jade box. He looked at Chen Hao in surprise and said, "Little brother, your pan fruit, is there a problem? If it's not possible, I will take it to another auction." "No, no problem. Don't misunderstand. Little brother, let's talk inside," the old man said and waved his hand to open the door next to the window. There was a touch of excitement on his face, and he became unusually enthusiastic. He made an inviting gesture to Chen Hao and Chen Shui. Chen Hao frowned slightly. "Isn't it just a pan fruit? Isn't this old man's attitude changed too much? Something at home delayed me. I only wrote 1 chapter, and I can only write it tomorrow afternoon. Sorry again." Chapter 350. After Chen Hao and Chen Shui stepped into the cabinet, the old man gestured for them to sit down before directly closing the window. "Little brother, may I know your name?" "My surname is Chen." Chen Hao spoke indifferently. "Ha! Little brother Chen, you and your Dao companion have already attained the incarnation stage at such a young age. Such natural talent and aptitude are peerless geniuses, and you basically don't need spirit medicines that increase your lifespan. Even if you need them in the future, this kind of immortal fruit can be completely ignored by the both of you. The old man had a smile on his face as he spoke respectfully. Chen Shui and Chen Hao frowned slightly when they heard the words Dao companion, but they didn't interrupt the old man's explanation. If you have something to say, just say it directly. There's no need to beat around the bush. Since I said I want to auction it, I naturally want to sell it. Chen Hao discerned the old man's implied meaning, yet he was puzzled in his heart, so he spoke directly. Okay, old man, I'll be frank. The life essence of this immortal fruit is extremely pure and boundless, and it's in a rather active state. Obviously, it was plucked 2 hours ago at most. Otherwise, the life essence of the immortal fruit should be restrained and not revealed. So, what old man means is, can little brother give the immortal fruit tree to our Emerald Cloud Trade Association to auction? Old man can guarantee you that our Emerald Cloud Trade Association will absolutely be able to auction it for an extremely high price. Chen Hao frowned slightly as he never expected that this old man's vision would actually be so sharp. Merely by the aura of the immortal fruit, he was able to determine the time he plucked it and deduce that the immortal fruit tree was in his possession. This caused Chen Hao to be shocked, and after pondering for a moment, he said in an indisputable tone, I'm sorry, this immortal fruit was entrusted by someone to be auctioned. Okay. This immortal fruit will be auctioned 3 days from now. If little brother wants to auction it in the future, feel free to come look for the old man. This is the token number. The old man will deal with the auction proceeds according to the lowest commission of the trade association. At that time, little brother only has to use the token to exchange for it. This is the pass for the auction. Both of you are welcome to attend at that time. This old fellow's eyesight is really sharp. He was able to determine the time of harvest just by relying on the aura of the immortal fruit. After stepping out of the old man's cabinet, the two of them walked directly out of the hall. Chen Hao transmitted his voice to Chen Shui. We're still lacking in experience. However, there was no need to worry. Large-scale auctions all had their own bottom line, and this kind of information would never be leaked. Besides, although the immortal fruit tree is rare, it's not precious enough for the auction house to go against their principles. Chen Shui said, let's take a walk in the Chamber of Commerce. According to the records, the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce's items are clearly priced at a price several times higher than the Chambers of Commerce of the Eastern Continent. Many of the items auctioned in the Eastern Continent are directly purchased here. I want to buy some phase that can temper my body. Alright, I'll accompany you then. The two withdrew their auras slightly. Although one could see their cultivation realms, they appeared extremely ordinary in Emerald Smoke City. Among the cultivators who came and went, there were plenty of Incarnation Realm cultivators. Only Half-Step Essence Soul Realm and Essence Soul Realm cultivators were rare. Only such experts were qualified to be received. With Chen Hao and Chen Shui's cultivation realms, there was no one to receive them when they stepped into the treasure sale hall. The hall was so vast that one could not see the end of it. It was like a city. Clearly, it had been integrated with an extremely powerful space law. Mysterious and strange auras drifted in the air, suppressing everyone's perception to a radius of 1,000 feet. Beyond this distance, it was difficult to advance any further. Even though Chen Hao and Chen Shui's souls were extremely powerful, they could only barely reach 2,000 feet. Amazing. I'm afraid this is a grotto heaven condensed by a top expert above the creation realm. The moment the two of them entered the hall, they were shocked. Powerful pills, Dharma treasures, rare treasures, and jade slips of secret techniques were suspended in rows. There was a dazzling array of items. Countless cultivators were either walking or stopping, searching for the items they needed. Ha! Brother Chen, what a coincidence! Suddenly, a voice came from behind Chen Hao and Chen Shui. A middle-aged cultivator came to Chen Hao's side in a flash. He had a smile on his face as he clasped his fists and said. His gaze drifted past Chen Shui's face, and there was a hint of surprise in his eyes. He said, this should be Chen Shui, Miss Chen, right? Ha! Brother Lei, you have good eyes. Chen Hao smiled and clasped his fists. He looked at Chen Shui and introduced, "This is the Heavenly Armament Pavilion's general manager, Lei Long, brother Lei. We got to know each other when I first came here." "Not bad, not bad. Brother Chen and Miss Chen Shui are really dragons and phoenixes among men. I think it's your first time here. If you don't mind, I'll show you around. I'm very familiar with this place. If you need anything, just tell me. I'll take care of it. There will be a minimum discount, haha." Lei Long said. "Then I'll have to trouble you, brother Lei." Chen Hao did not stand on ceremony. With such a huge space and limited divine senses, if the two of them did not have a target, they might not find what they needed for several hours. The Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce is the largest chamber of commerce in the Eastern Continent, Western Continent, and Southern Sea Islands. It's not inferior to the large chambers of commerce in other regions. There were countless powerful spiritual tools, special spiritual medicines, spiritual pills, and secret cultivation methods for sale here. All of them were clearly marked for sale. Moreover, they are updated very quickly. There's a term for treasure hunting among our chambers of commerce. If you're lucky, you might find many good things. However, that's in the free trade zone, Lei Long said as he led the two of them around. Free trade zone. Yes, the sellers in the free trade zone are not from the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce, but cultivators from all over the place. It's equivalent to renting space from the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce. After paying the necessary commission, you can sell your things here. The commission is very low. It's not like auctioning items, where the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce receives a percentage of the proceeds from the auction. Therefore, after estimating the price of their treasures, many people directly mark the price of their treasures and sell them here, so as to avoid the heartache after the auction. This is also the Emerald Smoke Chamber of Commerce's greatest advantage. I see. That's not bad. Let's go to the free trade zone and take a look. Chen Hao said. Chen Hao immediately understood the key to treasure hunting after hearing Lei Long's words. This was because not all cultivators could accurately estimate the value of their own treasures. Of course, since most people did so, they would definitely obtain more than auctioning off their treasures and save time. However, there were definitely some cultivators who had misjudged the value of their treasures. That was why treasure hunting had appeared. After all, even the appraisers of the Great Chamber of Commerce did not necessarily know the true value of many ancient and mysterious items. All right. It was impossible to fly in this enormous space. Although the three of them were fast, it still took them a full hour to arrive at the free trade zone. However, what surprised Chen Hao and Chen Shui was that the route Lei Long took them was actually winding back and forth, even repeating a few detours as if he was looking for something. Although Chen Shui was surprised, she did not pay it any mind. On the other hand, Chen Hao seemed to have vaguely guessed something. His deep black eyes, when the lightning dragon began to circle around, unnoticeably began to probe in all directions. Chen Hao's senses were restricted, but this space did not restrict his vision. Chen Hao's abnormal vision, which was several times better than a normal person's, became even more abnormal as his realm and cultivation base increased. Wherever his gaze passed, even in the midst of a bustling crowd, he could see through 3,000 feet and clearly count the number of eyelashes of any cultivator. Brother Chen, you and Miss Chen Shui have to be extra careful when you come out to train this time. Your appearances are really too eye-catching. It's very easy for someone to guess your identity. I heard that you two killed a few of the top geniuses of the Southern Sea Islands in Sky City, but you have to be careful. When the three of them stepped into the even more lively free trade zone, Lei Long transmitted his voice to Chen Hao. Thank you for the reminder, Brother Lei. Chen Hao's lips curled up slightly, revealing a smile as he replied. 3 people, 3 young people who had restrained their auras. Chen Hao did not recognize them. Originally, Chen Hao had not paid any attention to it. However, Lei Long's vigilance had caught Chen Hao's attention. Lei Long's words made Chen Hao guess the other party's identity and background. However, Qin Hao was not afraid at all. Instead, he was a little excited. How could the astute Qin Hao not have thought of such a situation? Even if Qin Hao did not think of it, Yuan Tairan, Xia Lingfeng, and the others could also think of it. Some people would not give up so easily. They could think of the methods that the Yuan Gate Master could think of. It was just that they could not stop it. Moreover, Qin Hao had thought of more than Yuan Tairan and Xia Lingfeng. This was because he knew very well what kind of people he and Qin Shui had killed in the Sky City. However, from the beginning, Qin Hao did not hide his traces and aura. The only thing he did not expect was that it would come so quickly. This guy led them around in circles. I'm afraid he has discovered us, right? When Qin Hao's group of 3 entered the free trade zone, one of the 3 people sent a voice transmission to the other 2. They didn't seem to have anything to do with each other. Should be. It doesn't matter if he has discovered us. We can carry out the plan now. One of the young people said to the other 2 through voice transmission with a cold glint in his eyes. I'm afraid we can't. That middle-aged man is an Essence Soul expert. One of them said. What are you afraid of? If I'm not wrong, that middle-aged man should be from the Chamber of Commerce. We're just trying to rope them in. They definitely won't dare to participate in our matters. Don't worry. I just don't know if they have the guts to go out with us. Come over. Immediately, the 3 of them gathered in one place. They stepped into the free trade zone and no longer hid their traces. Instead, they swaggered toward Qin Hao and the other 2. Come to vote for me. Your support is my biggest motivation. Chapter 351. Brother Chen, it seems like we're in trouble. I'm very sorry, but the people of our Chamber of Commerce can't participate in any disputes. These 3 should be the top geniuses of the South Sea Archipelago. If I'm not wrong, they're targeting you. However, as long as Brother Chen doesn't let your emotions affect your decisions, it'll be fine. As long as you don't leave the city, they won't dare to act recklessly. Lei Long transmitted his voice to Qin Hao as the 3 of them swaggered over. Brother Lei, don't worry. Go about your business. Goodbye. What surprised Lei Long was that Qin Hao actually said this. After he finished speaking, he simply didn't wait for Lei Long's following words. With a hiss, he turned around and walked towards the 3 people who followed him. At the same time, Qin Shui suddenly disappeared in front of Lei Long. It was as if she had just disappeared into thin air. Even Lei Long, who was at the primordial soul realm, could not sense the slightest bit of her aura. Unlike Qin Shui, Qin Hao's aura was released. Even though there were layers upon layers of restrictions in the hall, the terrifying pressure instantly swept out for hundreds of feet. It can't be. Brother Qin. Lei Long was so frightened that he hurriedly transmitted his voice. Could it be that Qin Hao and Qin Shui wanted to directly attack here? At this moment, even the 3 top geniuses of the South Sea Archipelago were a little stunned by Qin Hao's sudden action. They were even frightened and stopped in their tracks. The top geniuses of the South Sea Archipelago only have this much courage. How dare you follow me? How many more people have you called over? As you wish. Qin Hao's cold and disdainful voice drifted within a radius of 1,000 feet, and his figure directly rushed out of the Chamber of Commerce. He did not conceal his aura. His entire person was like an incomparably sharp sword light, emitting a brilliant heavenly aura. Originally, Qin Hao and Qin Shui were quite eye-catching. This sudden change attracted the attention of countless cultivators in the surroundings. They did not understand what was going on. They all looked at the 3 youths who were stunned by Qin Hao's aura. Buzz, the sound of discussion was immediately heard. How arrogant. I thought they were the top geniuses of the South Sea Archipelago. It seems like they aren't. That beautiful girl's concealment technique is amazing. These 3 are the top geniuses of the Southern Sea Archipelago. To be scared to this extent by two geniuses of the same age, it's really not as good as hearing about others. That young man's aura is too strong. Arrogant. How dare you? You're courting death. That's great. Let's go. The three of them only came to their senses when they heard the unbridled discussions of the experts. Their faces were burning hot and they were incomparably ashamed. Soon after, his expression became furious and ruthless as he spoke angrily. After saying that, the three of them also suddenly emitted a violent aura, and with a whoosh sound, they quickly left. This. Lei Long's face twitched. Even he did not expect that Chen Hao, who looked so calm and gentle, would actually behave so arrogantly and fiercely. Not to mention that the other three were shocked silly by Chen Hao's sudden performance. Even Lei Long couldn't react in time. After all, the other party had come looking for him, and it was obvious that he wanted to provoke Chen Hao so that he could lure Chen Hao out of the city for a duel. Moreover, the other party must have been prepared, and there were more than three of them. However, Chen Hao directly counterattacked. Chen Hao. Yes, it should be Chen Hao. The young man and the young girl just now must be Chen Hao, the champion of the Eastern Continent's intersect competition. The young girl might be the rogue cultivator Chen Hao, who was rumored to have trained together with him in the Sky City. It's said that they killed several top geniuses of the 9th-rank sects in the Southern Sea Islands. The knowledgeable experts in the crowd guessed the identities of Chen Hao and Qin Shui. Most of the cultivators present were from the three forces. Although they did not go back often, they still paid attention to the major events in their respective regions. Then the other three must be the top geniuses of the 9th-rank sects in the Southern Sea Islands? Let's go and see. Damn, it's really a great honor for the Eastern Continent to have such powerful geniuses. Please don't screw up. Otherwise, it'll be very embarrassing. Ha, is that possible? With the poor luck of the Eastern Continent, you want to fight with the Southern Sea Islands? You'll see how miserable that kid is in a moment. Tisk tsk, what's the big deal about the immortal Dao? Any genius from the Yao Dao doesn't even need to be a top genius to kill them. Ha! Let's go and see if the top geniuses of the younger generation of the immortal Dao have made any progress. The Yao Dao is nothing. They're so repulsive. Who knows how many years they've cultivated to take human form. Our demon Dao is the absolute number one. The battle between Chen Hao and the others had yet to start, but it had already caused the immortal Dao, Yao Dao, and demon Dao cultivators of the Eastern, Western, and Southern Sea Islands to shoot their mouths off. This kind of thing happened frequently in Emerald Smoke City. Once there was a conflict, no one would reason with the other and only look at the other's position. Chen Hao and Qin Shui, who was hidden in all things, quickly left. The three from the Southern Sea Islands viciously chased after them, and behind them were a large number of experts from the immortal Dao, Yao Dao, and demon Dao. There was no need to inquire about such a scene, nor did they need to listen to anyone's discussion. It was clear to the cultivators in the hall that there was going to be a good show to watch. The direct consequence of this situation was that it was like a rolling snowball, directly sweeping away all the cultivators that passed by. The number of cultivators surged out like a surging wave, and the number of people increased. It's not a good thing to be so arrogant. But isn't this more in line with his character? Lei Long frowned as he watched the crowd surge out. He also followed them out. Although he hadn't seen Chen Hao's experience with his own eyes, the Heavenly Armament Pavilion of the Eastern Continent's Immortal Dao region was very clear. Chen Hao was one of the important figures that the Heavenly Armament Pavilion wanted to make friends with. There were detailed records of Chen Hao's experience and deeds. Otherwise, when he saw Chen Hao, he wouldn't have guessed Chen Hao's identity at a glance. Thinking of the 18-year-old Chen Hao's rise in the Eastern Continent's cultivation world, although Lei Long felt that it was a pity for Chen Hao's arrogance and even felt that this kind of character would die sooner or later, at this moment, there was a faint trace of anticipation. Brother Yi, the Southern Gate. Chen Hao and Qin Shui are going to fight with us. Hurry. The three people from the southern sea islands chased after Qin Hao and quickly approached the southern gate. They also crushed their communication talismans. From the information they had obtained, Qin Hao's combat strength was definitely heaven-defying. Although they didn't want to admit it, they knew that it was impossible for the three of them to take down Qin Hao and Qin Shui, whose combat strength was unknown but who was at the peak of the late-stage incarnation realm. Especially now, Qin Shui's aura had completely disappeared from their senses. This was something that only Yishan and Shui could capture. Xiao Fei, the people from the southern sea islands are going to fight with him. Southern Gate, come and take a look. An old man who blended into the crowd and whose aura couldn't be detected even by primordial soul realm experts also crushed his communication talisman and sent out a message. A moment later, a figure who was sitting cross-legged in a cultivation room slowly opened her eyes after sensing the vibration of her communication talisman. The moment she opened her eyes, two terrifying sword intents flashed and disappeared. This figure was the champion of the Western Continent's Immortal Dao Sect Exchange Competition, Jian Wufei. She was someone who had shocked everyone in the Western Continent through this year's Intersect Exchange Competition. She had also created a miracle. The miracle of defeating someone stronger than her and fighting above her cultivation level was not inferior to the miracle that Qin Hao had created. She was also regarded by the Western Continent as a peerless genius of the Western Continent's Immortal Dao. I want to see how much his combat strength has increased. No matter what, I have to defeat him. I have to defeat him fair and square. I have to take back my providence and get rid of my inner demons. Boom. Following Jian Wufei's words, the aura of having the world in her hands suddenly erupted from her lithe and graceful body. The terrifying aura was many times stronger than when she had fought Qin Hao. I have already reached the peak of the mid-stage incarnation realm and cultivated the mountain river sword Dao to the peak of the 7th stage. My elemental intent has already formed the embryonic form of a sword soul. I can even kill an early-stage primordial soul realm expert. There is no reason why I can't defeat him. There is no reason. Jian Wufei's eyes shone with a cold light as she spoke in her heart. However, towards the end, even she became uncertain. This feeling made her expression turn grave. She knew that this was her inner demon. Before she truly defeated Qin Hao, this inner demon would continue to haunt her. Only by defeating Qin Hao fair and square would she be able to get rid of this inner demon. Hiss. Jian Wufei transformed into a streak of light and quickly disappeared from the room. Good, good, good. Looks like we'll be able to complete the mission soon. This kid really doesn't know his place. He thinks that the super geniuses of the southern sea islands are from the eastern continent. Cough cough, I'm also from the eastern continent. Damn it, it's best that they all die. I'll kill a few more before I die. I'll raise the prestige of the eastern continent's immortal Dao and return the providence that should have belonged to our origin sect. A figure wearing a black bamboo hat and concealing his aura quickly followed the increasing number of people toward the southern city gate. Will this really work? Qin Hao took the lead. Qin Shui, who had merged with all things in the world, followed him like a shadow as she transmitted her voice to Qin Hao. What are you afraid of? I'm so poor now. Since someone is giving me milk, how can I not accept it? The auction is in 3 days. I don't have time to dawdle with them. I'll kill as many as I can. If I can't, the Emerald Smoke City is just nearby. Can't I run? They obviously came prepared. Our Heart Sutra that has merged with all things in the world is not necessarily omnipotent, especially in battle, it doesn't matter. I don't think anyone can beat me unless they're in the primordial soul realm. My inflated self-confidence needs to be hammered. I hope that they won't be too weak. Qin Hao said arrogantly. The truth was just as Qin Hao said. He had been in seclusion for a long time and had reached the peak of the early immortal realm. Even he couldn't fully control how much his combat strength had increased. Only a true life and death battle could determine it. This was especially true for Qin Hao's body, which had become many times stronger than before. With just a thought, Chen Hao could feel an explosive power surging through him. This was the feeling of pure physical strength. It made him feel that even if it was a 10,000-foot tall mountain, he would be able to destroy it with a single punch. Second update. Wu Shan continues with the third update. It must be very late. Don't wait. You're tuning into the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.